From Studio B, two guys whose business cards simply say, I'll call you. It's The Bottom Line with your host DJ and KJ, asking tough questions, getting real answers, and sorting through it all to get to the bottom line.
Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, can only mean one thing, the bottom line. Ken, good to be back with you again this week.
Oh, yeah, and what a crew.
I tell you what, each week the bar gets a little higher, and I think tonight we're going to reset it again. Of course, had a great show last week with Pat Poole. This week, have a lot of great guests in Studio B. Just to kind of set the stage there, Ken, going to talk a little bit about Hometown Heroes, a project that's coming into Bruton, courtesy of the Smithsonian. What an exciting opportunity for the city of Bruton to put its best foot forward.
It really is, and we hope to try to kind of give back to that with this show tonight. And I think you kind of told me what was last week that they didn't have anything about this the 84 team at all.
Not as much as they need to. The 84 football team kind of, in my opinion, launched the success that we've had throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. They were the ones that went out there and got that thing done in 84, the first time since 69. We look forward to kind of catching up with them and retelling that story. But just before we get going down that road, just talk a little bit about Hometown Heroes, the Smithsonian putting it on. It'll be in Bruton June the 10th. Going to be a great event for everybody to partake in. Going to last about 4 to 5, maybe even 6 weeks in the downtown area. You're not going to want to miss that.
No, it's going in the building on the corner. I guess you called it the old Everages
That's what
building.
I call it.
Yeah, the old Magnolia Grill. To some of us, not quite as many majors as you had. Back in those days.
Yeah. a lot of opportunity there for everybody to participate in it. This is not just pigeonholing football.
No.
It's going to be the Smithsonian setting up in rural communities. I think Bruton, the only town in Alabama that has not the population of some of the others anyway.
That's a fact.
But we're going to have a chance to get in and tell our stories, whether it's the Battle of Murder Creek, whether it was recreational sports, whatever it may be. But we certainly look forward to this story of the 84 team being a part of that, kind of a ESPN 30 for 30, if you will.
That's right. We want to encourage, if you what stories you had from yesteryear. I don't think it really matters what year that they're looking for. You can submit your stories to our page. The Facebook page, you can submit it to I think Bruton Reborn. Mm-hmm. Maybe even the private PM, private message the Bruton Reborn page, and they would love to have any and all submissions. I think there's an event going on at English Realty. Is that correct?
Sandy's going to be hosting. I saw it on Facebook today. Sandy's going to be hosting something, and I think it's more for the cheerleaders. So if you cheer down through the years or were a part of the booster club in any way, they're going to have a reception. They're going to do something similar to this in terms of trying to catch it on audio and video, and really want a lot of involvement. The more people that participate, the better it's going to be. June the 10th is when this exhibit is going to launch downtown, the grand opening at 4 p.m. And I have it on pretty good information that our very own Walter Lewis is kind of going to get that thing kicked off. So I can't think of a more appropriate person to come in and be a part of it and kind of get us going in the right direction than Walter Lewis.
That's right. And what better way to kick off tonight than the crew of folks we got sitting here in front of us, DJ?
Tell you what, this is going to be a power hour for sure. We're going to go ahead and get started. Once again, several members, and of course, Coach Riggs was the defensive coordinator of that team in 84 here with us tonight. We're going to have to reset the panel several different times to get everybody in, but just quickly to introduce everybody that we have here. We have Frederick Craig, Kevin Ladinier, Eric Cole, James Weaver, Bart Till, Steve Jennings, and of course, Coach Jamie Riggs. Joining us a little later on a phone call is going to be Kyle Ferguson and, of course, Joseph Williams. So we look forward to catching up with them as well. Going to have a good time kind of recapping that season once again, and we'll go ahead and jump into it. And Coach Riggs, I'm going to bring you in first, and I want to go back actually to the 1983 football season. That was the last year.
It's ready.
It's ready, locked and loaded.
It's ready.
Already, yes, sir. 1983, the last football season where Alabama had 4 classifications. T.R. Miller, of course, was in 3A, went 9-1 that year with a great football team. You and I have talked about it on Tiger Talk over the last several years. I would make an argument they're one of the best football teams ever to play at our school. They were just a loaded football team, but unfortunately in those days, you almost had to go undefeated just to get in the playoffs.
Well, in those days, you did. You know, we knew that the classification thing was going to change over a year ahead of time. So going into the 83 season, we knew at that time that in 84, the whole thing was going to be different. But in those days, you were in a 7 or 8 team area, I think we called them in those days. And you had to be the first place team. If you weren't the first place team, you didn't make the playoffs in those days.
And if you lost Atmore, you weren't the first place team.
Yeah, if you lost Atmore, you weren't the first place team. And the 83 team was not the first team that lost Atmore and won 8 or 9 games, but didn't make the playoffs.
We're going to get into that a little bit later. And Coach, talk a little bit about that. And, of course, over your career, you positioned yourself in the state to have a guiding hand somewhat in terms of the direction that the state has gone with classifications. We have since gone to 7 classifications to try to create more parity. So I guess from a mission statement standpoint, we achieved our goals in terms of trying to create parity, giving more teams a chance to compete at the very high level.
Well, I think everybody would have to agree that putting more teams in the playoffs created a bigger interest, and it's created this playoff system that we have today, which is one of the biggest things in our state, you know, when the football playoffs start every year. So I think it's been a good thing. And it allowed some teams like our team in 83 that had a really good football team an opportunity to get out there and play and make the playoffs and go. And as we proved in 84, once you get into playoffs, anything can happen.
Well, Coach, quickly, going into that 84 season, and let's kind of set the coaching staff. You had Coach Mike Sasser as the head football coach. You were the defensive coordinator. Coach Roch, offensive line coach, had a hand in the offensive game planning as well. Alan Baker was in as his first year here at T.R. Miller, and, of course, Coach Jones. I think the other guys in the room will agree with me on this. That's a pretty strong coaching staff. Pretty strong coaching staff.
We were all young.
What were the ages? How old were you and Baker?
I was probably 28 or 29 years old at the time. You know, Alan was my age, and of course, James Jones was younger than that. He was probably 24, 25 years old. I think he was right out of college.
And Sasser and Roch were probably in their mid-30s, early to mid-30s.
Yeah. So we were a pretty young group, but you had of course Alan, Mike, and I had all graduated from T.R. Miller, and Donnie had been there for 10 years and was as dedicated as any coach I've ever been around. And Coach Jones just kind of filled that out a little bit. It was good to have him, his youthfulness a little bit too. I really enjoyed him.
As a coaching staff, how optimistic were y'all going into the 1984 season? You know, of course, getting reclassified, you're starting to play people maybe that we haven't played, you know, traditionally down through the years. I know that you were excited to probably see Greenville get off the schedule, Jackson, some of those guys. But what was the thought amongst the coaches in terms of getting into a new classification? Did y'all feel like, or did y'all say off the record that, hey, we got a shot to maybe get in this thing and see what happens?
But yeah, I think that was the attitude about it. It was a different deal because in the past, basically you lost one area game, the good chance you weren't going to be in the playoffs. So here you knew that you could lose some games down the road. You could lose some games that weren't area games. You might lose 2 or 3 games or more during the regular season, still make the playoffs. So there was excitement to know that at the end of the season, there was going to be some football, some postseason football to be played.
I think that's a good time now to bring in our tri-captains, James Weaver, Bart Till, and Steve Jennings. And Bart, I'll start with you, kind of going on the heels of what Coach Riggs says. As a 16 or 17-year-old, could you fully comprehend that with the different format, it was going to give you more opportunity possibly at the end of the year?
I don't think so, David. You know, I think, you know, being that age, you want to – obviously you want to win your games. You beat Neal, and you just didn't really think about the playoffs until, you know, our 84 rolled around, and then, you know, there was talk early on, you know, we had to – you know, they were going to take, I think, 2 teams from the district, first place, second place team, and we would all go make the playoffs. And, you know, there was some optimism that we had a chance to do that. Not so much after the first 5 games, but, you know, we got on a roll and it just kind of, you know, went from there.
Steve, I'm going to bring you in real quick. Bart alluded to something that Coach Riggs and I, once again, have talked about on Tiger Talk down through the years. When we were growing up as kids, prior to the teams getting reclassified, your goals pretty much were to try to beat Neal. You wanted to win homecoming, certainly, and you wanted to survive that Atmore game. And maybe not necessarily in that order. Right. You might want to survive that Atmore game first and take care of the other two later. But with the reclassification, I'm sure the goals got a little higher. I'm not sure that, once again, you completely understand it as a 16 or 17-year-old kid. But you certainly kind of look, there may be more opportunity there at the end of 10 weeks.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of people forget that mainly because of the strength of that 83 team, we were preseason number one.
I didn't know that. I didn't remember that.
We were preseason number one. And we quickly fell out of there real quick. We took care of the pressure pretty quick and lost, 3 of the first 5 games. But coming off the 9-1 season, we actually were number one preseason.
Okay. James, I want to bring you in real quick. And, of course, Steve kind of kick-started us into the next topic. We do come in preseason number one, which I did not remember that, did not know that. Yeah. And we come out to a 2-3 start. There's a lot of new guys kind of getting worked in, so to speak. I had some injuries we were trying to work through. What was the mindset of the team there in the first part of the season, getting off to such a rough start? And I also think it's important to add, there wasn't any cupcakes. I mean, it was still some of the heavy hitters.
We started off with Jackson. And matter of fact, the 3 games we lost were to 5As. We were 4A. So we didn't lose to anybody in our classification. But Steve was right. We're going back to that. I remember day one practice when Coach Ricks will remember this. We separated in groups. We stretched. And I was in Coach Roch. And I remember him telling me, hey, Halls, we're preseason number one. We need to be there at the end of the season. We've been in uncharted waters, since 1969? So we didn't have an idea. None of us thought about it. I don't think probably until we started really realize it until maybe the second game we beat UMS in the playoffs, and they'll probably agree. That's when we started thinking about it. But we had veterans, but the big issue, we had Steve out, we had several people out, and so once we got that nucleus back, we kind of gelled and we came together. And I tell you, we got on the roll. We became a real good football team.
Bart, going to bring you back in real quick, and of course, you were one of the mainstays on the offensive line. We talked about a little bit about you guys. A lot of y'all played as sophomores. Coach Sasser's first year as head football coach. Pretty rough season, a loaded schedule, very small in terms of numbers, senior class that particular year. I think you and Steve and Hammock and Britton and Mook and Big B and several guys really got thrown to the wolves that first year, got to play a lot of football. How important was that in terms of 2 years later being seasoned football players, being through in some pretty good battles, being bloodied up a little bit? How did that help you handle the adversity in the first half of the season?
I think it was extremely important when you have young guys that get that much playing experience as 10th graders. When you're playing Atmore and Greenville and Robertsdale and Jackson, that's just very valuable experience. And you carry through your junior and senior year, and by the time your senior rolls around, I mean, you know what's expected of you. You know the offense real well. And, like I say, when the chips are down and you got that experience, it's.
Actually, I misspoke. Y'all were 6-4 as sophomores. Yeah, that was Coach Sasser's second year.
Yeah. 6-4, 9-1, and then.
Coach Riggs, I want to bring you back in real quick. And of course, we talked about you being the defensive coordinator in '84, and I remember I was a freshman at the high school that year, and of course, knew all these guys very well. But when you looked out there and you see people like Chris Boyd, and you see people like Dwayne Hammock, Randolph Harris, Eric Cole, Michael Herbert, Roger Jones, Steve, David Britton, Yancey Jernigan, Donald Howell, Frederick Craig, you kind of like your chances anything you draw up, don't you?
There were some pretty good players there now, I'll tell you now. But, and several of them had played a lot in '83. And so we had some guys coming back, and some good experience with some of those guys. But, we were a little bigger that year in some spots, and we weren't overly fast.
You were pretty mean.
But we were pretty mean. And, it was a different deal than it is today. Mostly running football teams and that kind of thing. You might see 6 or 7 passes a game, and so, our primary job on defense was try to stop the run. If you could stop the run, you had a pretty good chance.
I just couldn't imagine being an opponent of that team, and Joseph's going to call in later, and Joseph and I talked on the phone a little earlier in the day, and he said that he was convinced that the best defense he played against, he saw 3 days a week in practice. And he said, if you could get off that field in one piece, then you'd like your chances on Friday night. But I couldn't imagine coming to the line of scrimmage and you look over there and you see Dwayne Hammock and he's liable to wink at you or give a little kiss sign at you or whatever. You look down at Big B and he's looking at you. And if you're able to navigate either one of those Michael Herbert or Roger Jones there to clean you up, that's a pretty good group to work with up front.
It really was. And, I didn't coach anything on offense that year. Mike called me the defensive only guy. So usually when we went to groups, a lot of those guys he would send to me. So I coached defensive linemen and linebackers and so forth, all during the time. And I think that helped us some. And because we had a lot of those guys primarily just played defense. That was a big deal. But there were some good players there. A lot of people don't know because we always think about Michael Herbert, who was such a tremendous player. But Roger Jones was a good linebacker. Mm-hmm. He was a really good linebacker. And Roger was really disciplined about what he did and made some of the biggest plays of the year.
Yeah. Steve, I want to bring you in real quick. And Coach Riggs, of course, led us into another great point. So many people have paid the price to play at T.R. Miller, and a lot of people have paid it just to have that 1 year where they're the first-time full-time starter. Roger Jones, of course, one of those guys. Another that we were talking about, before we went live. And I don't think he'll ever get the credit he deserves because his brother was so good and there were so many good players on the team. But for my money, Chris Boyd was as good as a physical football player that's ever played up there.
That's right. He was unbelievable. He and Roger, to me, were really the unsung heroes of that defense because they didn't have the name recognition. They were one-year starters, but they just made plays every Friday night, were very physical. I must admit, I remember in the spring before our senior season going into Coach Sasser's office, and I saw Roger Jones. He used to have the little round dials, and he was the number one starting linebacker. And I said, this just can't happen my senior year. I was like, I'm going to go talk to Coach Roger, Coach Riggs, and see, I can play that position. I felt like I could play it. I'm like, I'm going to go there. Roger cannot play there. And I have never been happier to be so wrong. He was great all season and made plays all year.
Well, I can tell you this, and Bart, I want to bring you in. And once again, Coach Riggs and I had a little experience with this committee on Tiger Talk that voted on some very trivial things down over the years. And the committee voted Roger Jones's hit down in UMS as the all-time greatest hit in T.R. Miller history. I mean, it sprung board what I think became one of the greatest runs in high school football. Yeah. And it doesn't happen if Roger doesn't get the head on the ball down on the goal line.
No argument here. I mean, it was a great play. He came from the offside and put the head right on the ball. The ball squirted loose, and David Britton recovered it in the end zone, and that was it. On to the next week.
James, I'm going to bring you back in real quick, and we're kind of trying to work our way through the season, and we've gotten through the first 5 games. We're 2-3. I think Steve had obviously been out for the first 5 games. I think Kyle Ferguson had missed the first 4 or 5 games. Chris Joyner had also missed several games with various health issues.
Quit after the Monday after the first game.
Start and tailback quit. All of a sudden, Joseph Williams is a household name in Bruton anyway, and we're going to get to that here in just a minute. But for my money, he's one of the best ever at Miller also. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But we get through the first 5 games. We're 2-3. We're starting to get some people back. Everybody's kind of now just going one way for the most part, getting pigeonholed to a particular position, understanding what's going on. What's the mindset moving into the second half of the season? I've heard it from second and third hand. The Atmore game, they whipped us. I mean, at halftime, it was a lot to nothing, I believe, yeah, and they were better than us. Maybe not that much better than us, but you hear that Coach Sasser may have challenged the football team a little bit at halftime, and we certainly came out and had a stronger showing in the second half, and I think played them maybe even outplayed them in the second half to a degree. But once again, a great football team. In your mind, is that where the season started to turn? Do we kind of find ourselves in the second half of that football game?
Yeah, I think that was part of the puzzle. I think we started just kind of getting back. But if you think about the first 5 games, we were reeling a little bit. We threw a lot of passes. Coach Sasser wasn't a big pass thrower. I mean, he wanted to run the ball. So you think about from game 6 to 10, we pretty much pounded that game. I mean, pounded the ball out. So we didn't throw it. So we kind of started getting our way, and we just kept building and building. And each game we just got stronger and stronger, and we came together. And I remember the UMS game, like Bart and Steve said, once we got that fumble, we went the next week. Pike County, we were probably, 4 touchdown underdogs or something. We supposedly had 9 Division I prospects. They came in barking that night. We ran them out of the place. Should have beat them. They wouldn't have scored if they wouldn't have picked the fumble up. We'd have beat them. Should have beat them 38-0.
So you're saying Ladnier fumble?
We had the shutout.
You're gonna get your chance in a minute.
I think
you're gonna get your chance in a minute, Ladnier. I promise you. The mic's gonna be hot in just a minute.
6. We had a touchdown call back. I don't know. Somebody got called for holding. I don't remember that, but
Ladner, is there maybe a reason why we didn't throw it? Was there anybody who could catch it?
No. Yeah, I need some receivers.
We're going to get back to that here in just a minute. Bart, I want to bring you back. I want to slow it down just a little bit and bring it back. Second half, Atmore game. We got our brains beat out the first half. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Did we kind of start to figure that thing out, going back out to finish that game off the way we did?
Coach Sasser and all the coaches challenged. I mean, we were humiliated in the first half. We got beat. I mean, they got 35 on us, and we didn't, 35 to nothing a half.
Now, they did have several that played the SEC.
Yeah.
The next couple of years.
Yeah. And
Bart made a couple.
I made one guy look like an All-American that night. I mean, I think we got challenged in the second half, and we came out, and I think we scored 14 to nothing. I mean, they might have been playing their subs or whatnot. We hung 14 on them, and from there on out, I mean, we didn't lose again.
Tell you what, let's take a short break if we can, Ken, and we come back. We're going to reset our panel here just a little bit, kind of get into the second half of the season, then we'll go back and forth through that with the playoffs. But a lot of good stuff left coming here on the bottom line from Studio B, so make sure you stay tuned. Coach Riggs, you stay. And we're back at Studio B, still here with the 84 football team here at T.R. Miller, the state champions. Kind of reliving those days and catching up, trying to get some things ready for the Hometown Heroes Project, Ken, that's coming in to Bruton June 10th. Going to be an opportunity for everybody to participate, and look forward to everybody doing just that.
And listen, you can call and participate tonight if you want to call in. I can't ever remember. Yeah, there it is, 251-272-7223. Give us a call, text, whatever you want to contribute. We've already had a couple of texts over here tonight, but the conversation was so good, I'm just kind of holding back on them right now.
We'll get to them here in just a minute. Also, this is not just for football, the Hometown Heroes Project. That's kind of what we're covering here tonight, but there's going to be a story box set up at the Oaks Cafe next Thursday. It'll look like a photo booth. If you have something you want to jot down and put some dates with it if you can, we would love to get that into the story box and make that a part of the Hometown Hero Project set to start in Bruton, Alabama, June 10th.
We got a call. Go ahead. You're on the bottom line.
Hey, this is Joseph Williams.
There he is. That's the guy.
There's the man.
Joseph Williams, officially now in Studio B. Joseph, good to have you on.
Hey, Joseph, turn your volume down on the show you're watching. That way we don't have an echo.
Joseph.
Okay, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a lot better.
Okay, great. How you guys doing, man?
Man, doing great. Got a lot of your former teammates here tonight. Coach Riggs here as well. Have Bart Till, Steve Jennings, James Weaver, Kevin Ladnier, Frederick Craig, and Eric Cole. So we're kind of recapturing the 84 football season, which, of course, you were a big part of, and going to put this in the Hometown Heroes Project that is set to come to Bruton on June the 10th, sponsored by the Smithsonian Institute. Glad you could take a few minutes to be with us.
I mean, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Joseph, quickly, I'm not sure if you watched the first part of the show, but we've kind of worked through the first 5 games of the season. A lot of adversity. Our starting tailback quit after the opener. Of course, you became a household name in Bruton, Alabama, the way you took off. We talked about the tough games with Jackson, the tough games with Atmore, Monroeville. We came out of it 2-3. We've reclassified from 4 classifications to 6 classifications. We're getting into game 6, and we're starting to make a run and get this thing going. Talk about your mindset and some of your memories getting to the halfway point of the season and what you thought this football team could do going into the second half.
Well, generally, when I was a sophomore, I just wanted to play football and just get an opportunity to switch in and get in the game on Friday nights, and didn't have really a lot of expectations, not big expectations. I mean, of course, we wanted to win, but my whole objective was to just try to get in the game on Friday nights, man, and just try to make a difference.
Well, I'm gonna bring your quarterback. I'm gonna bring your quarterback, Kevin Ladner, in real quick. Ladner, I'd say he made a difference.
Oh my gosh, Plunkett was the best. He had the best feet I've ever seen. They could hit him and he'd stay on his feet every time. It was incredible. What's up, Plunkett?
Hey, what's going on, my favorite quarterback? I tell you, it's good to see you, man. I kind of got it on. I'm able to see you guys, and I was just telling a friend of mine, man, that's my favorite quarterback right there. I think every time we get a chance to talk, I remind him of that. He's awesome. He was awesome.
Joseph, we tried to get Gump to come in as well. Gump had another commitment, wasn't able to make it, but maybe we can catch up with him a little bit later. And just to get this thing straight, you came in at fullback and he was the tailback. You guys, of course, flipped the next year, but you did most of your damage from the fullback position. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I think Coach Sasser had a play for me. The 30 quick trap is one of my favorite ones, but we just kind of slipped right in and got great yardage, man, every time. I was fullback, man, and it did look kind of funny back there with me. I think I was about 147 pounds, and we had Chris back there. I think he was pretty close to 200 if he wasn't. And it did look kind of funny, man, but we made it work, and we had a lot of success from it.
Joseph, I've heard you speak several times, like all the great running backs do, about how important the offensive line was in front of you. Of course, you had a very seasoned group up there with a lot of seniors. Talk about the work they did up front that allowed you to have the production that you had.
Oh, man, where do I start with them? I mean, they were all huge. They were like giants to me. I said it once before. I mean, I was small, man, and these big guys, man, it's like they were just trying to take care of me and just to make sure I was all right, man, and every time I'd get tackled, they'd pick me up and kind of lead me back to the huddle, and, I mean, holes were there. I mean, it was amazing. It really was. I didn't, like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of high expectations. I just wanted to get out there, man, and play football. And man, they made it so easy for us, man. I mean, I just can't say enough about them, man. I tell you, I think of them every time, man, I get a chance to see any of them or just talk to them on Facebook or whatever. I tell you, they're a household name around here when we talk about football.
Well, I'll tell you this, Joseph. When I was a kid, or when we were kids, we had Reggie Brown and Walter Broughton and Randall Mallard and some of those guys up there, and they were larger than life to me anyway. I mean, they were right up there with Tony Dorsett and Earl Campbell. That's who I thought they were. And of course, you came along, and I've towed the line with anybody that, in my opinion, you were the guy. I mean, you were one of the best to ever play up there. There were some guys, I don't know if you know them, that came behind you by the name of Ron Gibson and James Fountain and Rayvon Howard that have certainly put their name up there. Also, Dominique Jackson very recently, Cameron Coleman, some of those guys. But we've been blessed to have so many great running backs down through the years. But your name is certainly going to be in there with the rest of them.
Yeah, I sure appreciate it. I do, but it ain't about, like you all were saying earlier, and we were going throughout the program. It really wasn't about me or anything like it. It was our team. I mean, we had a great team. I heard them talk earlier about the defense, our defense, man, and you were right, man. We had a tough challenge every practice going up against those guys, man, and Coach Sasser didn't let up at all. If we messed up or missed an assignment, he put us one-on-one with one of those guys. I mean, I remember several times going up one-on-one against Michael Herbert, and, man, he made me do what I needed to do. It just was a team effort, man. everything happened for a reason, I think, and everybody did their assignments and did what they needed to do. And it's just a great honor to play Miller football, man. Every time I hear things, I'm just honored, man, that I was a part of a football team like that 1984 state championship team, man. That's a great honor. Well, and I appreciate you guys for what you're doing.
Yes, sir. And while we have you, we're going to jump ahead just a little bit, and we'll kind of play catch up with the guys here we have in studio. But let's fast forward into the playoffs and get into that exciting win at UMS. You know, that one went down to the wire, went in overtime, a game that could have gone the other way. We're certainly fortunate to win our way. And then, of course, even more importantly, that night in Cherokee County when we came back and down at the half by a couple of touchdowns, put it together. You had a big impact on that game with the hook and ladder there in the fourth quarter on that last drive. Talk about some of those memories and some of those things that were going through your mind during those times.
Well, the first thing I remember, it was cold. It was very cold and it was very muddy. I mean, they couldn't have picked a worse place to play a championship football game. But like you were saying earlier, you know, we were a running team, we were a grinding team, kind of snot-nosed football. We live for those kind of challenges, and we had to get ourselves going. We started out flat, man, and nothing was going well, and we went in halftime. I think we were down 18-0, if I'm correct, or somewhere up in there. And the coach actually just did another one of his speeches to get us motivated and to get us going, and we came out second half, man, and it was all about us, man, and we had a couple of close calls where, you know, we ran into a couple of fourth downs, and we had to get something going, and finally, I think we've been practicing the flea flicker. I call it a flea flicker to this day. We've been practicing that, man, all year long and never got a chance to run it. And finally, when he called it in a situation where we really needed that play to work. And it did. I mean, I ran down and Weaver caught the ball, switched it over, and I think I got about 40 yards more downfield to kind of set us up for that last touchdown. So, like I said, it was Weaver who caught the pass. It was Ladinier who threw the football into the end zone. I mean, we had to convert fourth downs over and over again. So, as you can see, that was a team effort, man. And I tell you, it paid off for us, man. We got that championship win, and we're here talking to you guys about it right now.
I tell you, Joseph, I don't know if you know this or not, but when you several times I've given, of course, that team to kind of resetting the culture at T.R. Miller, you know, for kids growing up, realizing that, hey, we can get it done right here. We can go get one of those blue maps right here in Brewton, Alabama. We've certainly done that over and over again. But starting with the graduating class in 1985, if you take that class and go to the graduating class of 2005, that represents 21 different classes. Every one of those classes, with the exception of one, at least played in a state championship game. And to me, that's amazing.
It is. It really is. Just the winning tradition that we have there. I think I read some stats where our win-to-loss ratio was like unbelievable over the years. And I've always said that Miller football has great tradition. We really work hard. Coaches give us an opportunity to win. They work us hard. And, it's something to take on in your life, you know, to help you get motivated for different things and different obstacles that you face on in life. So I learned a lot during those younger years.
Well, Joseph, I appreciate you taking time to call in and be a part of the program. And, of course, it'll be there for Hometown Heroes this summer. If you get a chance to come back this summer, try to come during that time frame so you can see the exhibit.
Oh, I sure will, man. Thank you guys for having me, man. It's good to see some of those guys. I saw Weaver. I hadn't seen Weaver since he caught that touchdown pass. So big up to Weaver. It's good to see you. I've talked to Bart a couple of times. I always just, I don't know. It's like I look up to him. You don't even know it. And every time I mention him, it just brings a big smile to my face, knowing that he was a big guy on my line, offensive line. We're the whole team, man. I'm glad to see everybody. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys sometime again, or in these archives, or the Smithsonian. It's a big for me, and I appreciate you guys for calling.
Thanks a lot.
And giving me to be a part of this.
Thanks a lot, Joseph. We'll talk to you soon.
We'll see you, Plunkett.
All right.
Back here now, we'll kind of reset the panel here in Studio B. We have Frederick Craig. Frederick was a sophomore on that team, a heavy hitter, come from the secondary on the special teams as well. quarterback Kevin Ladnier and defensive tackle Eric Cole. Eric, of course, going to be a candidate here for district judge a little bit later in the summer into the fall. Congratulations on that, and I hope things are going well, Eric.
Thank you, DJ. Appreciate it.
How's the campaign process going?
It's very informational, I guess.
Your weekends are pretty busy, aren't they?
It's very busy. I'm learning a lot about a lot of things in life right now.
Eric Cole, good man, district judge. Give him your consideration for your vote. Ladnier, going to bring you in, man, kind of getting back in the season. You were the quarterback, so you're going to be the face of the team, whether you like it or not. I was actually surprised that Joseph recognized all y'all.
Oh, me and Plunkett have stayed in contact over the years. We've stayed in contact and have gotten together a few times, and he's good people. Joseph's fantastic.
He could play, couldn't he?
He could play. He, like I said, he was the best I've seen. As far as feet goes, they would hit him, take his feet out from under him. He'd put that arm down and still keep going. It was incredible.
I'll tell you, Ladnier, and this is one of the great disappointments of my life, and you and I have been friends since way back, early childhood. I just have to believe that it would have been an experience being in the huddle with you. I mean, I can't imagine what went on in there, but I know it had to be entertaining. I know it had to be frustrating. I know it had to be a lot of things, but being in the huddle would have been a nice experience.
I feel sorry for these guys because I did good to remember the play from the time Coach Sasser would give me the play to the time I get to the huddle. I'd be stammering and stuttering, and I would make up all kind of stuff. It was terrible. I don't know why they put up with me, really.
Frederick, I'm going to bring you in, and of course, you were a sophomore on that team. You started cutting your teeth there on the scout team, and of course, we're an active member on the team with special teams. Played defense early in the year. We had some guys out. Talk a little bit about playing with the upperclassmen and how big of an influence they were on you throughout your career.
I was afraid. I had the biggest, one of the biggest shoes to fill on the team. Steve, I prayed every game for his recovery because I didn't know what I was doing. They was throwing deep passes on me. We lost our first 3 games. I don't know. I might have had a hand in all that. I was glad to see Steve come back, though.
Well, I can kind of speak to what you're speaking to because you were a senior when I was a junior. Mm-hmm. You had the hardest head of anybody I've ever had the displeasure of coming across. You were an absolute monster with that head. I mean, you were a hitter.
84 taught me how to do everything that I did to you guys. All the teaching, they taught me because every day in practice I ran for my life. Because Michael Herbert and Roger Jones, when they key in on you, you got to be getting somewhere quick.
Well, I tell you, I'm gonna get back to the 84 thing in just a minute. But when I look at you, I start getting chill bumps breaking out on me. You and I were good buddies. When you were a senior, I was a junior. We were in the secondary together. And I remember playing in Thomasville. They had those guards that would always pull. And in the secondary, Coach Baker would have us whipping and dipping. Well, somehow, and I blame Chris Bell for this, you and I got matched up as partners. You were the guard, and I was coming up there having a whip and dip, and you were taking it easy on me. You were definitely taking it easy on me. Of course, Baker wouldn't have anything to do with that. He started getting on you, and you looked at me on that last rep about the 7th one, and you said, "I'm sorry." Hey, here he came. Bam! Smelling salts. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wanted to get the trumpet out and go get in the band. I was like, no.
With the whip and dip, Coach Baker let me kind of change it and alter it to my personality because I couldn't, grasp the concept of 200-pound lineman pulling, and I'm standing there and whipping him off of me. I couldn't do so. I just go full head of steam into it, and then let's see what happened.
You did it well.
Outside leverage.
You did it well. Yeah. Coach Riggs, I want to bring you back in just for a minute because Coach Frederick was talking about the influence the 84 guys had on him throughout his career, and it brings me to this. When you were teaching technique, I have a vivid memory of the op game. I think it was the op game. Did we play op when y'all were seniors?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the first play of the game, Randolph Harris stood up and took his fist and put it in the face mask of the guard across from him. Is that taught in group drills, or was that just kind of his personality, like Frederick just mentioned? Was that his personality taking over on that particular play?
Randolph basically did what he wanted to most of the time. I taught him technique all week, and then when the game started, he did basically what he wanted to. And as long as he made plays, I didn't mess with him.
A lot of people think that Randolph invented the zone blitz because there was times he'd even drop back in pass coverage.
Hey, no doubt. Randolph could do his thing, and man, when he was going. He was tough now.
I think it's a good time to bring in Eric, because Eric, you were the defensive tackle opposite Randolph Harris, and everything he did, you were kind of the opposite of that. You were more of a tactician, technician type player. You relied on technique a lot. Of course, you played it well. You were a pivotal part of that run-stopping defense. Also, what were some of your memories of being in that huddle with those guys and being a part of that defensive unit?
Well, being with Randolph, of course, and Dwayne, it was always a treat because you didn't know what they was going to say or do. Dwayne always had some choice words, of course, for everybody, but they always funneled a lot of stuff over to me because nobody wanted to run on their side.
Well, I tell you, and you say that, and I remember it vividly. There on Second Hall, my mother's classroom, they had the what do you call it? The little display cabinets outside where they put their bulletin boards up or whatnot, and we played Tallahassee. They had an offensive lineman, I think, that was like 6'6" or 6'5" or 6'7" or whatever he was, about 300 pounds. And it was in the Montgomery Advertiser. It was a color picture. And that was the guy, I think, that was going to be lined up opposite you most of the night. And I think you wore him out the entire time.
He was actually 380. But he was slow.
So you didn't. So one play, he might have gotten you one play.
He might have got me on when I couldn't see the passer when he dropped back to pass, but I could get him on run plays because he's pretty slow.
Ladner, going to bring you back, and of course I already talked about you being the trigger man and kind of making the thing go. We get into let's rotate into the Battle of Murder Creek. That's a game of interest for anybody that grows up on either side. That's one that you want to get that one taken care of, especially your senior year, which we're not going to talk about that with you and Eric the next year, but we will talk about. We're going to focus on 84. Talk a little bit about the Battle of Murder Creek and that whole week, just being a young person in our community.
Oh, it's so different than it is now. I mean, it was really fun. They would come on our side of the tracks. We'd go on their side of the tracks, and maybe a little vandalism, maybe not. And just really a lot of trash talking, a lot of fun. And we pretty much handled those boys. Every time they'd come, they played us. I don't think Bart Till and James and Steve and them ever lost to those guys. But it was always a good time. My memories are looking over there at Neal Stadium, Neal stands, and seeing the Confederate flag waving and hearing Sammy Nelson.
That rebel yell.
That brings chills when I think about it now. That was you knew it was Neil Miller night when you heard Sammy and you saw that Confederate flag. That was good times every Friday.
I tell you, and I'm going to bring Frederick back in, and I'm not going to call James Monroe's name, but he was the running back at Neal when Frederick was a senior, and we whipped him really good over here that particular night. And when the game had gotten out of hand, he had the ball coming around right in, and Frederick rolled up on him, and he threw the ball to him. He had enough. He had tapped. We watched it on film over and over again. He got up, and he saw big number 20 coming again. He said, "Here,
I'm done.
I'm out. Had enough." It was always good whipping those guys, wasn't it, Frederick?
It was.
You got one over there now, don't you?
Yeah, I got one over there now.
But we're going to work on that.
We're going to we're going to see how this season goes.
All right, let's get into the playoffs a little bit. And we talked a little bit about the UMS game. That was a game that was kind of, we were in control of that thing for a while. Then all of a sudden they kind of got some momentum going, got it tied up, got it late in the ball game. Roger Jones made the big hit down the goal line. David Britton recovered it. I think Steve had an interception in overtime, and I think, was it Moot that kicked the field goal, or did we score a touchdown? Scored a touchdown. Joseph took one in, and that propelled us. What was it like being in that football game? Because when you get that point of the season, you lose and you go home. This basketball season the next day, what was the mood on the sidelines? What was the attitudes over there? What were some of the things that were going on as that game played out?
I can remember when we didn't score, and they had the ball, and I'd taken my helmet off. I thought, that's it, season's over. Season's over. There's no way we're going to stop them. And that's when Roger made the big play and gave us new life and everything like that. It was meant to be. If everybody remembers, McKinney had a cast on his hand, and he was tough. And I saw him at a recruiting trip several years later, and he came up to me. He saw my state championship ring, and he said, "Hey, that should be my ring." He said, that should be my ring right there. You guys ripped us off or whatever like that. I said, well, it's not your ring. It says T.R. Miller on it. So yeah, he has hard feelings about it, which is okay with me. He fumbled.
And Coach Riggs, I want to bring you back in on that game. Of course, you were in several shootouts down through the years as a coach. Don't you have to kick the field goal down there if you're UMS? I mean, you got the all-state kicker, and they're basically an extra point. What do you think could have been going through the guy's mind to try to punch it in with a touchdown?
Well, just sometimes you just feel like maybe we ought to run a play or two here and see if maybe we can score a touchdown and be safe that way. If we line up to kick the thing and he misses it, then everybody turns around and says, you idiot, what did you kick the thing for? Why didn't you run a few plays and try to score? So, but they did have a really quality kicker and everything, and it would have been probably the play to make would have been to go ahead and try to get the field goal.
Well, I'll tell you, I've watched the video over and over again of that particular play down there, and they tried to go off left guard, and Roger Jones came from the backside. I mean, it would have been very easy and almost understandable to have taken the play off because he was probably shouldn't have been involved. He gave extraordinary effort to come from where he came from to get his hat on the ball and get that thing out of there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why you play as hard as you can on every play, because you never know what's going to happen. David, when we get to the state championship game right before halftime, we're already behind, and they bust a run. And the guy breaks all the way down there, and Roger Jones, who was a backside linebacker, chases the guy down, and they don't score right before halftime. And have they go in and score, it could have been a different deal. So, that's why you keep playing all the time.
Going back to that play at UMS, if they had ran off right tackle, they would have ran through the back of the end zone because our left side defensive tackle got taken completely out. Have you seen the video? And do you remember who that defensive tackle was?
I know, David.
That wasn't me, though, was it?
Oh, no, it was not. But we're going to talk to the guy who it was a little bit later. I can promise you that. He's going to be back up here at the desk here in just a minute. We're going to recap that one. But thankfully, they went off left guard, and thank God for Roger Jones. How big of a play was that? Ken, let's take another short break and reset the panel and kind of get into that last game if we can.
Yep, we'll do it.
Riverside it. Coach. Back in Studio B with the 84 champions. And Steve, I want to bring you in, and of course has had some good dialogue with Kevin and Eric and Frederick, and he paid his respects to you in terms of kind of playing in your shadows there a little bit, the safety, and kind of assuming that position when you left. But I think the respect is mutual.
Certainly is. If he was scared of our defense, he had a funny way of showing it. He was, ran second team tailback against the first team. My first week back from the injury, we were doing an outside drill, and Frederick took a sweep to the right side, and never forget it. I rolled up on him, and he dropped that head on me, and I thought he'd broke my shoulder, my ribs, everything. I can't believe this. My first day back, I'm about to go back to the sidelines, but it was he was good. James,
going to bring you in, and we talked about Kevin being the quarterback, and I think it's fair to say that Kevin was a little bit of a free spirit, and I think in a lot of ways that's good when you get in a tense situation. I can't imagine him being stressed out to the point that he couldn't go out and do his job. He certainly proved that late in the playoffs, that championship game, having ice in his veins. But I'm just assuming it's an experience being in the huddle with him.
Just thinking about that last drive, I don't remember him ever getting nervous, which I don't remember a whole lot, except for a couple of plays. But hey, I don't know. I guess we felt it. And with him leading, he's our leader. We just kind of got behind him and we just took it down.
All right, Big Lou, you know I love you like a brother, and I'm going to give you a chance to defend yourself. I kind of called you out down there on UMS on the goal line. I know it was wet turf and maybe didn't have the 1.5-inch screw-in cleats that you needed, but on the film, it appeared you got blown up. Is that not the case?
Well, the old saying that the film doesn't lie. Well, in this particular case, it did. I got a really good jump off the ball. I got penetration, and I got a hand on a jersey, but then I got turned. I had a bad angle. Once the guy blocked me, got the angle on me, he just kind of pushed me out of the way.
Did you end up on your?
I did get excellent penetration.
So let me ask you this.
Unfortunately, we weren't playing touch. We were playing touch and been down. Maybe they did double team.
They get loaded up.
They did double teaming though.
My favorite memory from the UMS game is I was standing with your mother down on the end zone about the 20-yard line, and we were both as nervous as we could be. And when it all went down and happened, I bet we hugged there for an hour is what it felt like. Of course, a celebration ensued, and everybody got on the field, but certainly an exciting time. And I kind of want to capture some of that going through the playoff runs in the schoolhouse. I want to focus on the electricity on campus, in town. I mean, everybody was up for it. We were kind of getting into uncharted territory. The 69 champs, and Coach Riggs, you can help me on this. I think they played 2 playoff games and then the state championship game, or was it 3 playoff games in the state championship game?
69 group only played two games. There was a semifinals and a finals all the way.
So we had 5, and of course you could just feel it building up each and every week. And I think this needs to be called for hometown heroes also. And I don't want him to get upset with me. Tommy Thompson, another member of this football team, played nose guard. My memory, and me and Ladner were both in music appreciation with him first period. He had the board, and for $1 you could pick all the games. And at the end of it, at the end of the night or on Monday, he would hand out the money to whoever won the board. You put $1 in, you picked all the games. And I remember Mortimer Jordan; they would always be penciled in as M. Jordan, and I picked them every week until they got beat because I thought it was Michael Jordan. So I'm gonna go with. I picked against T.R. Miller every week, but it got to the point I didn't want to jinx us. But Tommy Thompson had the board going on third all. He kept his administration fee. Then of course the rest went to whoever won it. I think Trevor Youngblood won it in week 3.
Yeah.
But Coach Riggs, I want to bring you back in, and we talk about this thing building up, and it was uncharted territory for all of us. Of course, in our lifetime, we had never seen Miller football go and run like this. And I guess the first time you're going through it, you may not know what to do other than get excited. And of course, you've been through it several times over, through your coaching career. But wasn't it a little different that first time, just riding the wave of excitement and emotion that happened here in town?
Well, it was. We just had not. There had been no such thing as a playoff run, really. The 69 group, again, didn't play but 2 games. And so by the time we got to the 3rd week and then got to the semifinals, there was just excitement everywhere. And I was excited. I'm going to tell you, I was excited as I could be. And just the opportunity to be able to play and the hope that we might win again. And you don't want to look to see who you're going to play next week if you win. But, boy, we sure did.
And, Bart, I want to bring you in real quick, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong here, anybody. McDonald's opened in Bruton that year, that football season, I believe. I remember it being in our yearbook at the end of the year, the Golden Arches, being one of the pictures in the yearbook. But we had the little pep rally at school on Thursday, and then y'all went and ate at McDonald's as a team, and then y'all came back going up to the interstate, and the whole school emptied out on the highway there on Highway 31. They kind of cheer y'all off on the way. I remember being a part of the student body. I mean, we were completely jacked up. I mean, it was exciting. It didn't matter what your role was, if you were a player or a coach or just a student there in the school. That was exciting. I'm assuming the same feeling was felt throughout the bus when y'all came back and the whole school standing out on the top of the highway.
Yeah, it was. We like to say we went and ate breakfast that morning. I think it was the first day McDonald's had opened in town, and we ate breakfast, and then they brought the buses back up Douglas. We passed the elementary school, and I distinctly remember, I don't know why I remember this, all the kids were running out as we were going by. Yeah. And I remember James's nephew, Jason.
That's right.
Jason Madden. Was he had this biggest grin on his face and was jumping up and carrying on and everything, and years later he grew up to be one of the better athletes to ever come through.
One of the very best. Yeah.
And then we going up through the high school, and my grandmother, my folks are from Butler County, and my grandmother took a bed sheet and she had painted T.R. Miller, go TRM, go Tigers, something, and she hung it from one of the overpasses on 65 going up at the Georgiana exit. And I remember that.
Who'd you sit beside on the bus going up?
I avoided Hammock and Randolph at all costs. I don't know, Kevin. Was it me and you? Maybe I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Who'd you sit with?
I think me and James sat together.
Yeah, we were. I remember we were on the left side of the bus because we saw the elementary school.
Okay,
and I remember right because if you remember going back when we left McDonald's that day, and you guys can remember this, it wasn't just the schools. If you remember, the whole town, everybody lined the streets, and I got to say, Bart's always liked having the police escort. I kind of liked that day too. That was pretty special. I like the police, but even past Georgiana, we got to Montgomery right before you crossed the Alabama River. Somebody had painted a sign there for us. Yeah, and I remember that. So
and that's what the trailways.
This is.
The Trailways was big time.
He graduated from the D shift.
I remember Mr. Gardner got him personal, and he brought him there that day. He was excited. Just think about it. He's been a superintendent. He was excited. He brought us to Trailways. We thought we'd hit the big time.
Coach Riggs, got to bring you back in. Okay, we're on the Trailways. We're headed north. You have to be a little nervous with the guys you're taking up there. They're going to be in your control overnight in the hotel. I mean, we already talked about some of the characters, and we hadn't even mentioned Michael Grimes and some of those guys. But, I mean, I knowing Coach Roch like I knew him, there had to be some nerves setting in on the coaching staff on how you're going to handle these guys 5.5 hours away from the house.
Well, I have to tell the Dwayne Hammock, Mike Sasser story on this deal. Donnie and I were scared to death Hammock was going to do something, and so we already had a plan up. We had a schedule up. I was going to look out, these hours, and Donnie was going to wake up. Donnie got up about 3 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, he was going to have him from like 3 to 7 or something like that. We were going to check his room every so often, make sure he was in there. So anyway, we had a coaches meeting right before lights out for everybody lights out, and Donnie and I sat there and we got through the meeting and we started covering when we were going to do it and everything. And Mike didn't know anything about this. So he said, what y'all talking about? And so we said, okay, well, he's got Hammock's room at this time. I got Hammock's room at this time. And he looked us dead in the eye and he said, I want everybody to understand this. You can catch Dwayne Hammock doing anything you want to tonight. But tomorrow night at 7:30, he finna play football. So when he said it, Donnie and I looked at each other, and I said, Donnie, I'm going to bed. He said, I am too.
So as far as we know, Hammock may have had the run of the town in Gaston or wherever we were at the night before. He
was on the bus that night, that evening when we went to Center. That's all I can tell you.
Eric, I think he roomed with you, didn't he? Yeah. Did you sleep with one eye open the entire night?
And Grimes and Tommy Thompson.
Grimes, Hammock, you and Tommy Thompson. Wow. Wow.
That speaks volumes of you and Tommy.
It's a wonder we slowed anybody up that next night.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Bart, who are you in the room with? Do you remember?
I'm sure it was Kyle, maybe Thad. Don't really remember. I'm sure it was probably, I know Kyle.
Had the defensive backs together, me and David Britton, I think Yancey Jernigan and Donald Howell.
Okay.
Actually, I think it was me, Kyle, Thad, and Chris Joyner.
Yeah, I think that's
Text
right.
Fergie and get him to call in real quick.
Yeah, I think Coach Sasser put me with 3 juniors. I think it was Chad Hawthorne, Michael Lawson, and I can't remember the other one. And all they wanted to do was play, and all I was thinking about was the football game. I was like, "Yeah, we got to think about the football game."
Well, talk about being outside your normal routine. You're on the opposite end of the state. We're right there on the Tennessee line. Talk about the excitement of being on the road. Being in a hotel, riding on the trailways, things of that nature.
We probably did everything you're not supposed to do. I think we ate. I'm trying to remember where we ate at that night.
We ate at Quincy's.
Yeah, I remember eating at Quincy's, and I do remember the bus ride going over to the game. James actually told me, we were sitting next to each other going game day, that he dreamed he caught the winning touchdown.
Is that a true story?
It's a true story.
Yeah. I actually told, and God rest his soul, he's passed on, Jim Martin, Boyd Martin's daddy. We were sitting at the hotel before we boarded the buses, and I said, Monday night I had a dream, and I think my brother Jack, we shared a room. I told him, I said, I dreamed I caught the winning touchdown pass in less than a minute. And I told Mr. Martin this, and he's like, well, I hope it didn't happen. And I said, well, I hope it didn't come down to that either. Well, lo and behold, in the stands, he was sitting by my dad, and when that 4th down play came up, he told him.
Wow. I've not heard that one.
So, yeah.
Bart, talk about how cold it was.
Very cold. I know that it seemed like they had I don't know if it was from the week before the game they tore the field up, or they may have had some kind of 4-H or something going on. That the field was in horrible shape, and it had the little divots in the mud in the middle of the field, and it was so cold that they had froze. It was like playing, ridges, like on a curb, like on a if you get the picture, it's like brick frozen mud with ridges in it. It's hard, very cold.
Don't I remember, and maybe I don't I remember there being garbage cans out there with fires in them on the sidelines?
They did on our sidelines. I know we had them.
I know they had a skinning rack about 15 yards on the other side of one of the goalposts on the far end. Skinning rack. I do remember that.
Well, I got to say something funny when you talk about the Neal game and Sammy Nelson. So we were in our group stretching. Coach Roch is there, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden you hear "Yeehaw!" And he turned to me and said, and me and Steven said, "Was that Sammy Bulldog Nelson?" I said, "Yes, sir, it was." He said, "He's all right." So I remember that vivid.
I remember my experience from just the fan side of it being cold. It's the coldest I've ever been in my life. I don't know if you guys ever warmed up when you started playing and getting moving. I can just tell you, it's the coldest I've ever been in my life. It wasn't a close second, and it could have been worse. I remember I was a freshman. Stayed with my parents in the hotel up there obviously, and we went to the game. My mother was trying to load me up with toboggans and jackets and gloves, and I wouldn't have any of it. I didn't want my members only jacket covered up, that little paper thin members only jacket. And I sat there, and I was too proud to go over and tell her I was cold, because she had tried for an hour to get me to put on extra clothing. Finally, I'd had enough. Hands started turning purple, and I walked over there. She never even looked at me. She just handed me a bag with all the long johns and everything. I put on everything I could get and still froze. I mean, it was a mean, cold night. I can't imagine it being any colder in a championship game in Alabama that anybody's ever played in. I don't know that's an official number, but it would be hard to believe that it was ever colder for a championship football game. Coach Riggs, I want to bring you back in. I know that game didn't necessarily lead to it, but you coached in a game a little bit later in Alexandria where their elements were pretty bad. The condition, to say the least, was miserable. And I think it might have been that game that propelled things to the Super 6, now the Super 7, to at least try to create a field that's playable so that maybe the best team does win. Not saying that it didn't happen in both those cases, but the field certainly played a factor in both those games. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, it is, and it was the next year that we went to the Super 6 concept and everything, and it's turned out terrific. It's been a really good thing, but it kind of took away that home field advantage that you can get, particularly if the weather's bad, because I know the night we played in Alexandria, we had, no heat, it's raining, the wind's blowing, it's about 40 degrees, it's just horrible conditions. And you're a lot better being at home. I know that night they changed uniforms at halftime, put on dry stuff. We don't have that, and so it really, I think, helped when they were able to move that to Birmingham.
I don't think there's any question that was the right play to make. I've been to a couple of those events, and the state does a phenomenal job putting on that whole series of games. But there is a little something lost, especially I think in the lower classifications, when you get into small town Alabama and you see the town spirit or whatever it may be. I remember the following year, I think we played at Elba and got beat in the playoffs up there. And I remember driving through Elba, and it was like a deja vu. It looked like Bruton the year before. Every window downtown was painted up with the Elba colors and Go Elba, whatever it was. And, of course, just having a championship game in a small town, I think is pretty cool. All that being said, I'm glad they do it the way they do it. But it was kind of neat to have the small town atmosphere going with big-time football.
Yeah, and we missed that a little bit when you had the championship game at your home. But it's still a big thing now to have the semifinals or whatever when you get down there late in playoffs at your home stadium.
All right, let's set up the last drive. We're going to do it with this group. Then we're going to bring in the second group and get their version of it. All right, we get down there. And I think somebody noted earlier it was 12-0 at half. I just got a text and it was 12-0 at half. We came back. I think we scored. They scored, and then we scored the final 2 touchdowns. I think it's important to note both teams scored 3 touchdowns, but only one team had the ability to kick extra points or chose to kick extra points. I think it had kind of been the MO of Cherokee County throughout the year to go for 2. Of course, they had Brad Johnson and maybe even the Houston kid, who I think went on and played at Alabama. They had some legitimate blue chip talent as well. But their inability or choosing not to attempt extra points cost them dearly that night, for certain. And I guess where I was trying to go with it, or what we get in that last drive, what's the mindset in the huddle?
You know, DJ, it's been so long. I don't remember anybody panicking. I really don't. I do know that we started in the hole. Kevin had an ouchie or something on the play before, and he went out. And Keith Megginson came in, and he was either cold or really nervous in the huddle, getting the play called. And
tough spot to be in.
It's very tough spot to be in. I mean, coming off the bench, cold as it was. But anyway, had a little trouble getting the play out. There was some miscommunication, and I think we had an offsides penalty. We jumped offsides, and then then Kevin came back in, and and then shortly after that was when we ran the hook and lateral, and that got us out to midfield. Had a couple, maybe a fourth down conversion that got it.
When we started the drive, how much time was left thereabout?
It was
48 seconds.
No, it was
a little more than that.
2 minutes and 15 seconds, I think. I think that's what it was. Because the first time Kevin threw a pass on the first down, it was incomplete. He got hurt. As Bart said, ouchie. But
you're gonna get your chance. I promise you. You're gonna get your chance.
I'm messing with him. But Keith came in, and like Coach Rick said, he was cold. He was nervous. Hey, I would have been nervous too. We got on all sides, or legal procedure, and then the next play was then Kevin came back in, and I remember when Kevin came back in, I can't remember if he brought the play with him, but it was the.
Well, the best part.
We call it the flea flicker. This
is what you didn't see. That's what Joseph called it also. What you didn't see is when Ladnier had his ouchie, he came to the sideline. They decided pretty quick that he was going to be okay to go back in. Ladnier, being the free spirit, he was headed to the water cooler to get him a little swig of water. And I remember Roch grabbing him and said, "No, Halls, he going back that way." It was no big deal. Let Meg take one more snap. It's all good. We got it. But there was no sense of urgency. It was just Ladnier being Ladnier. But they got him out there. Of course, the flea flicker. What's your route of the flea flicker?
I'm supposed to go down about 10 yards, do a little curl, but I just knew then, I was like, okay, you got to go and at least get the first down, because if you don't get the first down, then it's fourth down. So at least if you catch the ball, they tackle you, at least we got a first down. But I made the turn. They played off us a little bit, not want to give up the big play. So I remember breaking and doing a little curl about the 10 yards. Kevin threw it right there, and I just remember Joseph coming down, and it was just like I waited maybe a second, I don't know, maybe 2 seconds. When they converged on me, I pitched it to him. And
did you ever think about faking the pitch and keeping it yourself?
I know. I did on the 2-point conversion, but not on that play.
All right, if we get the flea flicker, Bart, Joseph takes it down there 40, 50 yards, gets it down to, the 25, 30-yard line, whatever it is.
Well, the first time
flips
we got
the field
down to about I think it was 35, 38, and we ran a couple plays, and it was fourth down and 5. And Kevin threw me another 5-yard stop. I think I got it down to the 21 then.
Oh, so we converted a fourth down before the fourth down. Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
Twice. Yeah. I remember I was nervous. I think I was more nervous on that play than the one I scored on, because I was thinking, oh my God, I just got to make sure I catch it.
All right, before we get to that play, going to bring Coach Riggs in. Coach Riggs, you're the defensive coordinator. Your guys have gone out there and kind of done their part. Are you down there with the offensive coaches watching or listening to the play calling, or are you back on your end of the field just kind of watching and hoping that we can make something happen?
I had no clue what we were doing on offense. I'm standing back there watching, and when James caught the pass, I said, first down. I had no idea he's fixing lateral ball. He lateral the ball. I went, oh, my gosh. I was excited. I was cheering. It was great.
All right, we get down there. It's before we run a couple of plays, whatever it is, and it's 4th and 10 from the 20. Is that what it is?
21.
4th and 10 from the 21, which was your number, by the way. Mm-hmm. 4th and 10 from the 21. Stephen Thomas is also. He paid me to say that. Oh. But 4th and 10 from the 21. And what's the play call?
It was 32 bootleg, wasn't it? Come back. I think it was 30. Coach Sasser, he had Rob Roy and Lulu and all this, but that was a Rob Roy, because I went to the right side. But and Kevin probably remember, I always said 32 counter passes, 32 bootleg, but it was a 10-yard curl, basically what it was. And that's all it was. And if I'm not mistaken, Kevin can tell me, say this, I don't think me and maybe Carlos Poe was the only two going out.
Had Boyd on the deep drag.
Okay. I couldn't remember. But
both safeties went with him.
Yeah. I just remember in what a small world we live in. When I lived in Texas for about 2 years, I used to call on Exxon. The guy that I called on was from Center, Alabama, and Gifford was his best friend, the guy that we collided together.
Oh, really?
What a small world, yeah. So we had fun about that. But yeah, I 10-yard curl and made the turn. I started looking. I saw Kevin starting to throw the ball.
Well, I tell you this, and of course, there's a lot of components that work there. Getting that thing blocked up front, making the catch, pretty good pass too.
Pretty good, great pass. Threw it right on the money. Jumped up. When I caught it, they hit me and spun me around perfect, and I facing the goal line. I think I got hit 3 or 4 times and fell in the end zone.
Barton, of course, I'm gonna bring you back in, and I think this is one of the cool things about being a small town neighborhood team. Me and Coach Riggs have talked about this many times. The private schools that have come in and kind of handpicked their players, I don't think there's no way they'll have what we have. I think you'd have been proud of anybody in a white jersey scoring that last touchdown late in the ball game. But to see the guy who grew up 3 or 4 houses down from you, who you had played with since you were basically 4, had to be an extra special feeling, I'm assuming.
It was, and the guy that threw it.
He
lived right around the corner from me. And we all, we'd all been buddies, and we grew up, playing football since we were in the 3rd grade with the youth program, came up through the middle school, and it was a special feeling.
Very good. Let's take another short break and get the other panel in here and kind of get their version of that last drive. So I got a feeling it might be a little different. Stay with us. Back in Studio B, still wrapping things up here with the 84 championship football team here at T.R. Miller. And Ken, we thought it would be entertaining, and I saw you when Coach Riggs was telling the most recent Dwayne Hammock story in terms of who was going to watch him. Pretty good stuff here tonight.
That was great. I'll tell you, I've not heard that story. I've heard a lot of Dwayne Hammock stories, witnessed a lot of Dwayne Hammock stories, but never heard that one. And that was good, Coach Riggs. I'll tell you what. Good stuff.
And Eric, we mentioned it. I guess you drew the short straw or whatever it was, but you're in the room. You and Tommy and him and Grimes made for a long night, I'm assuming.
Very long night. I was real tired the next day. I slept with my eyes open.
Were y'all did he go to sleep? Did Dwayne ever
not go to sleep that night?
Were y'all bedfellas? I mean, did y'all actually share a rack, or was
me and Tommy had a bed together, Michael and Dwayne, but they wasn't in the bed.
I can't imagine. I tell you what, if we'd had social media back in those days.
Oh man, that's what I was just sitting here thinking.
My goodness, how good could that have been?
Man,
I think he ordered a pizza at midnight.
I hope that's all it was.
I'm not going to verify it.
Talk a little bit, and we're going to get into that play in just a minute. I want to start with Kevin and go to Frederick. And we talked about having a young coaching staff. Talk about the coaches and talk about their personalities and what they meant to everybody and some of the things you took away from that still that you applied in your everyday life today.
I definitely remember Coach Riggs he was the defensive coordinator. You would hope Coach Sasser would hurry up with his spiel and everything so you could get in there and hear Coach Riggs' defensive speech because his were the best.
Oh, he was the emotional guy.
Oh, my gosh. He was an emotional guy, and he'd pump them up, and they'd be ready to just take on the world by the time they left. Coach Sasser was fantastic. He doesn't get a lot of credit. James and I get most of the credit for that last pass and that last drive, but he made 2 calls on there, and he's had a couple calls that he made that like on that last drive, he said, "Hey, don't go for the touchdown, go for the first down." And that made a difference right there. If we'd have went probably for the touchdown, he'd have probably stopped us.
Frederick, going to bring you in, and we talked about that being the first year of Coach Baker on the T.R. Miller staff, and you and I, of course, played for him the next couple of years in the secondary, and I think was a big piece of the puzzle in terms of T.R. Miller's success. What he brought in the weight program, where he brought in intensity, attention to detail. We all learned an awful lot from him.
Coach Baker would get our blood boiling. I think he was the turnaround. Do you know how many times we listened to Eye of the Tiger? When we go in there, I mean, it would get us motivated. I mean, we feel invincible after we hear Eye of the Tiger. Something so simple. I mean, it worked. It worked for the coaching staff, and that's how they got us pumped up. And we went out there and took care of business.
Coach Riggs, I'm going to bring you back in, and I've said this to anybody that'll listen, and those numbers get fewer each year. But I thought the coaching staff as a whole, I thought y'all were ahead of your time, so to speak. You know, back in those days, you and I have talked about it. Everybody put on every pad they could find, whether it was the old J pads, hand pads, a neck pad, and it was a glorified street fight. But you guys and T.R. Miller, we were a little more versatile with Coach Sasser. On defense, y'all were a little more versatile. We brought some blitz packages together that you didn't see all the time from everybody. But I think in a lot of ways, y'all were kind of ahead of the curve on that, so to speak.
Well, David, I think everybody contributed to that. You know, the way Mike ran the thing is that everybody had a responsibility to do it. He expects you to take care of your responsibility. So I dealt with the defense and the defensive linemen and a lot of that stuff. And then he called the plays. Donnie did the offensive line, and everybody worked really, really good together. And I think that was one of the keys to the thing. Everybody did their responsibility to the very best that they could. And we tried not to leave a stone unturned, especially when you get to playoffs. You know, we spent extra time doing all kind of things. And one of the things we did in 84 was, for the first time, we actually went on the computer.
Really?
Yeah, and it was the first time that I had done anything like that. But we had actually got a program where all it really did was sort plays. But I would go up on Tuesday nights and put all the plays in the computer up there at the school, and one of those big old apples, you know, with the big floppy disk, you know, look like a record. And I'd stick that thing in there, and it'd spit off all these plays, and then I could take a look at it as it sorted the plays and the formations to get some tendencies and things like that. So that was one of the things we did that was brand new in football.
Talk a little bit, and of course you were on both sides of that, you know, with the advances in technology, and of course the way y'all did it back then with the 12 millimeter film and whatnot. And I have vivid memories. I think these guys do too. If you rode by the field house, or I say the field house, up under the stadium, you rode by the stadium on Sunday, y'all were there till 10, 11 o'clock at night every night. I mean, y'all were up there, you know, during the week, you were up there till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I mean, we actually had y'all more than your families did. And I'm not saying that that's not that way now, but it was certainly longer days just because of the tools you had at your disposal to prepare for the next week.
Yeah, it did, and especially as you got to playoffs. And, you know, when you got to the Neal game, you spend however much time necessary. And in those days, to watch the film was just an ordeal a little bit, because you either had to go up on the stadium and watch it up there. We only got one projector, so we all got to watch it together. And and even at night, sometimes if I want to watch extra film, I'd have to take the projector, all the film, to my house, which was an ordeal to be able to do. So you had to work pretty efficiently, because we just weren't able to watch as much film as we could now, since all that stuff's on the internet today.
Got a text in from a regular viewer of the Bottom Line, Tractor Bryant, who played in the 94 team, and he was they went 15-0, another one of the great football teams at T.R. Miller, the only team to go 15-0. But he was 7 when you guys won it, and he was talking very complimentary of Coach Riggs and the things you instilled in him, the way that you kept the bar high, made everybody be accountable, and he wanted me to wish you well, hopes you're doing well, and thanked you for holding him accountable. I was very nice of Tractor.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tractor.
Eric, I want to bring you back. Talk about, you know, what our coaches meant to us. And I've told Coach Riggs this many times. And not just the coaches, but our teachers. Somebody mentioned Dale Garner earlier. You know, he and Mr. Pendergrass. We lost Mr. Pendergrass about a year ago. I remember it being very important to me to not want to disappoint them. Whether it was Miss Bain, Miss Cotton, Miss Page, whoever it was. I mean, I got my share of trouble like anybody else, but I remember what my teachers, Miss Patton. Well, I was a little more worried about Miss. Never mind. But the people we were surrounded with that kind of had a footprint or a handprint on our lives. I think we were pretty blessed to have the people we had up there during those days.
Yeah, we were truly blessed to have the teachers and the coaches that we had. Of course, you know, Coach Roch was He was a great mentor to all of us, and Coach Riggs taught us a lot about life because, like you said, he always said, make them snap it one more time. So good things will happen to you. So just persistence and perseverance will see you through if you'll let it. But we were truly blessed with teachers because living in a small town, we knew we couldn't disappoint them because our parents always knew when we got home what had happened during the day. So you knew you was going to get it from them if your teachers called them because they knew what was going on with us.
And they also allowed our teachers and coaches to give it to us also. No question.
That's correct.
I can assure you that. If Mr. Baggett put the board on me, which he did several times, Mr. Baggett didn't have to worry about my parents calling him. That's the way it was going to be.
Coach Branson, he was brutal. Branson would hurt you.
I want to bring Coach Riggs back in, and of course, every opportunity I get to talk about Coach Riggs, I take it because he was just such an amazing person, and like we just mentioned, we're so lucky to have him for as long as we did, and there's not a day that goes by that we don't think about him and miss him. But just talk about getting to work with a guy like Coach Roch every single day. Had to be a treat in and of itself.
Well, great. I had a great relationship with Donnie, and in those days when we were both assistant coaches, and we were pretty young. It was great because we got to say whatever we thought to each other about anything and everything, you know. So if we thought Coach Sasser was getting a little bit nervous or whatever the problem was, or he needed to calm down a little bit, which wasn't very often, but I guess, you know, we basically told what we wanted. And Donnie always thought that Mike would listen to me and wouldn't listen to him. So if he had an idea he thought was good, he would pitch it to me and says, now you need to go talk to him about it. But Donnie Roch, I coached 38 years. Of all the people I coached against, all the people I coached with, never was with a better coach than him. He could do it all. He could coach technique. He could motivate you. He was good at practice, good during the games. Now, he's as good as I've seen during the games. And then outside of that, coaching in the hallway and all that kind of stuff, he was the complete package, and we were very, very lucky to have him just as a coach for as many years as we did.
I'll tell you, the way he involved himself and put himself in the lives of so many people, and we talked about accountability. My first, or the earliest experience I have with him that I remember, I was 10 years old playing Little League Baseball. He ran the summer baseball program. All of you guys had a summer responsibility. His was baseball, and I remember being in the batter's box, and he looked down. He was a home plate umpire, and he looked down and he said, "Hey, Hoss, you going to play for me when you get older?" I looked at him. I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "You don't tuck that shirt tail in, you won't." And I said, "Time out." And he meant it. I mean, it started right there. He didn't wait for you to get on campus with him or whatnot. He invested in all of us in some form or fashion. And you don't get that all the time, but he was certainly a special man. And it's fun to kind of talk about that and kind of remember those folks. And I kind of want to take this opportunity to remember some of the ones. We're talking about the 84 team. And I certainly hope I don't leave anybody out, but we have lost some of the guys off that team much too early. We lost Dwayne Hammock, I believe, Yancey Jernigan, William Poe, Chris Bell, Richard Williamson, and Dwayne Clark. And it kind of makes, when you think about it like that, you know, we've had a good time here fellowshipping tonight and remembering all the different times during the year, but it's also important to remember the guys who aren't here with us because they were certainly a big part of it as also.
Yeah, a huge part. Those guys were all fantastic, and you know, we've all got good memories of all those guys. It was a blessing to play with all of them.
Frederick, going to bring you back in, and of course, you know, Chris Bell was in our defensive groups when we played. He was a classmate of yours, along with Richard Williamson and Dwayne Clark. And I know you and I have talked about it before up there in the south end zone before games, talking about old teammates, and those three certainly come to my mind, and we share stories about them. They were special people.
Hey, David, can I go back to one thing that we were sharing just a few minutes ago?
Sure you can.
Recognizing coaches or whatever.
Sure.
All of the sophomore class, we have to take our hats off to Coach Hart. We loved and respected him, and like I said, we were scared. We saw how big these guys were, and Coach Hart had some words that he had to say to us because we wasn't going to play. We was like, man, we ain't playing. These guys too big for us. We were all, 140 pounds maybe?
Maybe.
You couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear it, but Joseph Williams said the exact same thing.
Coach Hart told us to get our butts down there, and you're going to play for T.R. Miller. And the rest is history.
Well, there you go.
Because we
Coach Hart's certainly a piece of the puzzle. There's no doubt about that. His stamp's all over that campus and that sports program.
Yep.
All right, let's get back now to the last drive. We had the first three in here, and we kind of heard their version of it. And I think the story's going to end the same. Weaver scored.
Right.
We won the football game.
Absolutely.
How'd that last, I heard the word ouchie come out earlier. How'd that last drive play out?
Oh, let me redeem myself. I need to redeem the Ladnier family name here. It wasn't an ouchie. It wasn't an ouchie. Somebody missed a block on the offensive line. I'm not going to say who.
What?
And it was a curl pattern.
I can tell you who it was. What formation were we in?
I didn't even know at that time what formation we were in. Really, 30 years later, I really don't know.
Does Rob Roy ring a bell?
Yeah, some Rob Roy, Lulu, something like that.
So it might have been your backside tackle?
Probably. Went to throw a curl route when I stepped into it, somebody put a helmet right in my midsection and thought I was going to die. I mean, I couldn't catch my breath. Coach Sasser came out there and grabbed the old belt loop and picked me up a few times.
That helped.
got my breath back under me, and that's when Megason came in. So it was not an ouchie.
This is perfect. You talk about Coach Sasser coming out and grabbing the belt and trying to get your breath going, and you brought up Coach Hart. This year at a baseball game, it won't be near as fun as it was when it happened. At a baseball game, two of our outfielders collided. One of them's out. You can obviously tell that he can't breathe. Coach Madden runs out there, grabs his belt, starts doing this. Coach Hart is expressionless. He's standing right beside me. He's got his hands on the fence, and he says, "That does absolutely no good." Of course, we've seen it done for years, over and over again, and I guess it appeases the crowd a little bit, or mom and daddy, that you're giving your kids some medical attention. But Coach Hart, he said, "That does absolutely no good." And it was hilarious. So I'm kind of glad it tied in like that. But we talked about the how cold it was in center. And early in the ball game, we had trouble holding on the football. I think we probably had 4, 5, 6 fumbles. I don't think we lost all of them. We had a hard time handling football.
Our first 2 drives, I fumbled the snap. I mean, I couldn't feel my hands on the first 2 drives. I remember talking about the fire barrels on the side of the field. I was standing by the fire barrel, and people coming out of the stands, people I didn't know was coming out of the stands, handing me the hand warmers. They were getting, hand these to Kevin. I had all these hand warmers in my hand, trying to get my hands warm. But it was vicious. I could not feel my fingers at all. So really, you take out those first 2 drives, and I think they probably scored off of at least one of those 2. I mean,
Cash Covington. Cash Covington was the tailback. And Frederick, you might have been Cash Covington during the week at practice. Is that right?
I ran into Muda a lot of times in practice. They almost killed me being Cash Covington.
So you knew what he was going to be in for that Friday night if we got up there in one piece.
But the scouting report was right. Our coaches, they prepared us for this guy. This guy was pretty good.
Coach Riggs, I want to bring Coach Riggs back in, and we talked about their inability or not wanting to kick extra points. They've scored 3 touchdowns. We scored 3 touchdowns. We're up 19-18. There's less than a minute to go in the ball game. Whose idea was it to go for 1?
Well,
you're the defensive coach, right?
I'm the defensive coach and not the head coach. That's not my call. I was so excited that we scored. I was still celebrating, so I didn't even know the difference there.
Well, we secured the 2-point lead. We made the extra point. They come down, they get it out to about midfield, get across midfield. And for a guy who's never kicked extra points the entire year, I remember my heart dropped when he tried the 40-yard field goal or 45-yard field goal, whatever it was. It was absolutely dead on. It appeared to have plenty of height early in the kick. And, of course, you could tell around the 15 or 10-yard line it may not make it, but it looked pretty good coming off his foot.
I tell you, like a good coach, I'd watch them kick in pregame warm-ups, and they weren't kicking it real good. And when he lined up to kick that field goal, I looked at Donnie and said, "This is in the bag, buddy. I watched him kick this guy's never going to kick this field goal." And about that time when it came off his toe, I said, "Oh, my gosh."
Well, I can tell you what would have been the kiss of death. If you'd have compared him to your 6-year-old daughter, he'd have made it. You don't want to do that, and you certainly don't want to do it twice, like somebody else I know did. That unreal. I'm glad I wasn't on the air. I'm glad I was only 14. I think the Jam had the call that night, didn't he? He and Hugh. Yeah. All right, so we get down there, we score, we go ahead. They come down, miss the field goal. The game's over. Of course, pandemonium erupts from the T.R. Miller sideline. Talk about some of the things that were going through your mind as it's finally a reality. We're the state champions. The Blue Maps coming to Bruton.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. It was surreal, to be honest with you. I remember the excitement of everybody, seeing all the guys that we had played so hard with, seeing the excitement on Bart's face, and I can remember him. I can remember Steve. I can remember all those guys. I remember grabbing Yancey Jernigan and hugging him and tackling him and us just celebrating. So, I mean, I can remember just the total pandemonium and just the joy on those guys' face because, I mean, we lived, like Bart was talking about us being on Woodmere, all of us, we lived, breathed sports, not just football. Anything that had to do with sports, we lived and breathed it since we were, 7, 8 years old, and that just was the explanation point on everything. It was fantastic. Can't explain it.
Eric, would you like to add anything to that in terms of just the raw emotion that took place when it was triple zeros across the scoreboard?
Well, it was a great feeling, but I'm going to claim the ouchie in that game. I don't know if y'all remember, but I got my face mask broken. Everybody says it was Brad Johnson, but it was really that Cash Covington. And I hurt my eye, so I did get the ouchie. I'll fess up.
So you can verify that Cash Covington was a load.
Yeah, we forget, they had, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 yard rushers in their backfield.
You're on the bottom line. Go ahead.
Hey, Bart.
Is this Ferg?
This is Ferg, man. I got tied up in my daughter's graduation party, and time got away from me. What's going on?
Kyle Ferguson, this is DJ here on the bottom line, recapping the 84 football season with a lot of your former teammates. Coach Riggs is here with us as well. We've had a great time for the last hour talking about it, and of course your name's already come up several times. Joseph Williams has called in, very complimentary, the offensive line that paved the way for all the yards he ran for. Just real quick, and a lad near sitting here with us, Eric Cole, Frederick Craig at the
Fergie.
Hey, Frederick.
What's up, Ferg?
What's going on, Fergie?
What's up?
Ferg, what just in a kind of a nutshell, what are some of your memories from that 84 season? We've kind of played out the string here already. What were some of your memories from the 84 season?
Man, some of the memories of the 84 season. Is James at the table?
James is here. Yes,
No,
James is not at the table, but he is here. Yeah.
I'm sure you've already heard about that play then. No, man. What I remember most about that team is just us as a group of guys coming up all together, and from way back in the day playing mites and winning all along, and just having a great chemistry as a group of guys playing football, just all the friendships we had, and I tell kids today as a principal and as a former coach, that's not necessarily the championships that you remember. It's those days at practice and in the locker room and traveling and, those plays and, big licks and, me and Lulu, we were always very competitive to see who'd get off the ball the fastest. And, hey, man, it made us all better. But, I remember Mook. I'm pretty sure Mook still got some of my hunting boots somewhere. We were just a real close-knit group of guys that loved playing together. It's not that, we had some good athletes, some really good athletes, but, I think on our whole team, our senior year, we have 2 guys signed, 3. It was just the fact that we had a great group of guys and some great leaders, and we played well together.
Well, I don't know.
Some great coaches.
But you certainly had great coaches. I don't know how many players you had signed, but I do know you had Dwayne Hammock and Randolph Harris, and that helped. I don't know if they signed or not. I don't know if they signed or not. They were pretty good 4A football players.
I remember Randolph used to stand on one foot until his ankle would swell up, so he didn't have to run sprints. Those are the kind of memories that you cherish, But and I still to this day don't know anybody that can make a body part swell to miss out on conditioning. But
he never wore hip pads or butt pad either.
No.
What
Hey, and he became a professional wrestler. Who'd have thought it?
I watched him over at Southern Normal. Frederick, you were there. The Samoans did a number on him. They did a number on him. I remember Coach Sasser when he wrestled at T.R. Miller at the stadium. Coach Sasser was a special guest referee, and I remember it was one of those. I remember it was one of those Pier Sixers out there where everybody charged the ring, and Big B was the last one coming. He came from the south end zone. He came running down the track in his unitard and went in there and started throwing that left, and he cleared the ring.
He was a beast. He was. I mean, he was like a tornado. He really was. I mean, he reminded me of a tornado when he hit and spin and stuff would fly off of him, like debris. But he was. We had some true characters.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit, Ferg, about and we were just kind of getting into this. We win the game at Cherokee. The clock goes 0. What were some of the emotions you were feeling? What were some of the things going through your head? And the fact that all that work and that journey had ended in TR Middle winning the state championship.
Oh man, it was a storybook ending. It was a perfect ending to a great career as a group of guys. Growing up from way back in the day when Coach Best coached us. And of course, way back then, I think some of us guys that were linemen were running backs back then, and the running backs were linemen. But no, it was. I was very proud of the fact that we had a young quarterback, Ladnier, and we had a very young backfield. We Chris and Joseph and all those guys, and I felt like it was a kind of a testament to our senior leadership to be able to take a group of. We had a lot of young football players, on defense, Yank and Howell and all those guys, but I think we had some great senior leaders on our team too that really allowed us to achieve the way we did, and hey, we had a great coaching staff. How many of our coaches, Coach Riggs is just now retiring this year. Coach Hart, he wasn't there then, but he coached us in middle school, and comes back and brings along another. How many years did he coach at
he just
Miller
left.
He just left after we left.
He just left last year.
And we just, man, there was such continuity and tradition there. It was, we always expected to win, and that's what great programs do. They expect to win. Well, I remember this. Huey, did you say Huey's there?
He's here.
Huey, do you remember?
He can't hear you. He doesn't.
You and I were.
Hold on 1 second. Steve, put on the headset.
So who can hear me?
All right, right now.
I'm on the air.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, everybody on the World Wide Web can hear you here in the panel.
You might want to tell me that.
Yeah, no, everybody.
Everything's worked out great.
Everybody.
Huey and I, if I remember, I think Huey and I were MVPs when we played W.S. Neal.
That's exactly right.
We laid the smack down on them, and when you're young, you say stupid things, and y'all probably remember one or two stupid things that I might have said back then. But I remember they asked me, "What do you think? What do you think, Kyle, about the Miller-Neal rivalry?" And I said, "Well, I think it's a great tradition, but it's certainly one that Miller will always dominate." You think about those things after you say them, but it's kind of worked out.
If he'd asked you, if he'd asked you the same question about the T.R. Miller Atmore series, what would you have said?
Well, I'll tell you what. Back then, you better have your chin strap buckled, or you might be looking through a helmet with no face mask. It was. Matter of fact, Bart, was that you? No. But no, it was. That was always a snot knocker of a ball game. It was. We played against some great Atmore teams. It's kind of. We haven't. It's been a long time since Atmore has played at that level, but we had some great competition back then.
I definitely remember our sophomore year playing Atmore. Scared to death that game. The cheerleaders had worked so hard in the north end zone. They had made a makeshift cemetery with all the tombstones.
Is that where Bart was hanging out?
We came down before they got there. Hours before Atmore got there, I picked up every tombstone, threw them all in the garbage can. I didn't want to make them mad.
Yeah, it reminds me when I was coaching at Satsuma years later. We played Viger, and that was Viger's heyday. And we played at Pritchard Stadium, and I think that might have been one of the years Viger either won a state championship or came darn near it. The ambulance went around the track so many times. I thought we were at Daytona. It was they were picking us up left and right. It was a very violent game.
All right, now you got Weaver and Bart and Steve are all here now.
Lulu.
What's up, man?
Steve Perry.
What's happening?
Huey.
Good to hear from you,
Perry. That's James.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing I remember about that team is we had some talent outside of football. You know, we had singers and we had professional wrestlers.
We had some creative dancers too, didn't we?
We did. Arthritis is kind of taking its toll on some of that, but I'm not as good as I once was. I'm as good once as I ever was. But who could ask for a better childhood than growing up in Bruton and graduate from T.R. Miller? Tigers for life, baby.
Yeah, it was a good time. Before the show completely goes south, I would like to throw in one thing. Kevin touched on it earlier about Coach Riggs, having him here. It's great to have him here with us tonight. His pregame speeches that started, like I said, he started defense coordinator when we were juniors. And before he got there, it was I always felt like Coach Roch was such a dominant figure. Offense, it was all about offense. Back then, before the games, they only called out the offensive starters. Defense wasn't even mentioned. And in the locker room, they had the big chalkboard that Roch would, diagram on, and we'd have to go to the weight room for our defensive meetings. And Coach Riggs would go in there. I'll never forget the first time going in there, no chalkboard, nothing. We're just kind of sitting around the weights. And he starts talking about really the pregame speech was just Miller history, games in the past, players from the past, and every week it always seemed to have a similar. He'd talk about a particular game and history, and then it also ended with there was always some old lady he'd see in the Winn-Dixie or somewhere, and I never will forget. He'd just say, "Well, Coach Riggs, I'm just worried about y'all's defense. Ops got some big running backs, and I'm scared they're gonna, hurt you." And you see Mook over there, and Randolph and Dwayne, and everybody. You left that room just wanting to kill somebody. And when we'd go back to the locker room, my locker was next to Bart's, and the first couple of weeks he's giving these speeches. And I guess he must have seen something in our eyes. When we get back, and Bart goes, "Man, what's up?" I go, "No, I don't want to talk about it." He goes, "What do you tell y'all in there?" He goes,
PSD.
He goes, "I don't know." He said something about Red Gate sitting somebody, and there's an old lady that thinks we're all going to get hurt. Get out of my way. I'm going to kill somebody.
I'm pretty sure Randolph and Dwayne probably did kill somebody.
But after a few weeks, now all of a sudden
we had some characters.
We had our share of characters.
Some of y'all
are
still characters. I may be one of the only ones that finally settled down.
Well, the last time I saw you had a tie wrapped around your head.
Hey, live broadcast.
But getting back to the Coach Riggs' pregame, after a couple of weeks, the weight room used to be down the hallway from the coach's offices and then the main locker room. And we'd be sitting there talking and be starting in, and I'd see the door kind of crack open, and I'd look, and he had Bart down there, and Lee Mart Sellers and Mitch Lewis were all kind of peeking in. We had half the offense trying to sneak into our defensive meetings to listen to them. So we certainly knew, right then and there. I never played for Coach Riggs as a head coach, but having him as a defense coordinator, certainly not surprised all the success he went on to have.
Well, Coach Riggs kind of going on those same lines, and you talked. I've heard you say it many times. You played. I think you played for Coach Cotton in some capacity, whether he was a coordinator or not, and I think you credited a lot of that part of your coaching philosophy in terms of getting guys motivated to Coach Cotton.
Well, in those days, we didn't have about 4 calls on defense, so I had to kill 20 minutes. So, Donnie, how long is that offense? I got a bunch of schemes to go over. Okay. So I'd rev up something and get it ready to go. I kind of enjoyed that, it was fun. And I thought, after we started, the guys enjoyed it and everything. So those days, the game plans weren't real complicated. So we just did it as a good motivational time to get ready to play.
Bart, want to bring you in, of course, talking about the position coaches and the coaching staff as a whole, and just memories in general of that entire time in our lives. Coach Roch was another one of those. We talked about you guys being a little envious of that. I can tell you, being not an offensive lineman, you'd always see Coach Roch take care of the Hogs, whether it was getting y'all pumped up. And I can tell you this: when I was playing, when it was a big ball game, particularly Alba was a big series when I was coming along. you could bet your butt that he was going to have the offensive lineman at Jack's eating breakfast that Friday morning, and it was going to be on him. They'd have new black hand pads, and it was going to be on because Roch took care of his guys too.
He did. He took care of us. I remember, I guess it was our junior year, he had some hats made, had hogs on it. I think that was kind of a play on the whole Washington Redskin thing the year they won the Super Bowl. But I tell you what, I remember my most vivid moment of dread that I remember was we were on our way to play the UMS game in the playoff game. And we were on the bus going down there, and I don't know why, but all of a sudden we get to Twin Bridges, and it just dawned on me, I think I left my jersey. So sure enough, when we get down there, and I start unpacking the bag, and it's not, helmet comes out, pants come out, and I get to the bottom, and it's not there. I have to suck it up and go tell that man, Coach, my jersey's sitting in the locker back up at the stadium. And I swear his face turned red, turned green, went to blue, then back to green to red. He was livid. I've never seen him that mad before. And I was kind of the point where I didn't really care what happened on the field. I just wanted him, not to have to deal with me on Monday. Well, he dealt with me. And
well, what about poor old Danny Burt that had to stand over his shirtless the rest of the night?
I remember that.
66 had a pretty good game that night. I don't know.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, oh yeah.
He ran me ragged.
Well, hey, I get an opportunity to be around a lot of kids every day, and kids, they don't even know who Donnie Roch was, but they hear him every day because I say so many things that he said to us. And I'll never forget one of the lessons he taught me years ago, and I know y'all remember it because you hammer me every time we get together. We had a TV crew filming practice, and Tom Watson we were doing a drill, blocking drill, and I think Tom Watson was a nose guard or something, and it was my turn, and he snapped the ball, and Tom got by me, and Coach Roch started chewing me out, and I said, well, Coach, he went the wrong way. And he said, hey, Fergie, in the game, you call time out, ref. He went the wrong way. And it was at that point in my life I quit making excuses. Right then and there. That was a defining moment for me.
Was that before or after the ankle lock?
And I can't tell you how many hundreds of times I've said that to my football players when I was a coach, and I say it. I probably said it last week at Northridge High School.
Well, Ferg, we have millions watching in tonight, and I want to get the record straight. Coming off the T.R. Miller had their sports banquet last night, and a lot of awards were given out to a lot of deserving student athletes. At the end of the year, when we had the big spring banquet, who got most valuable offensive lineman?
That'd be me. That'd be me.
So the age-old question in terms of who anchored that line, you got the hardware to prove it.
Well, I do have the hardware somewhere, but I can say this. Nobody rolled off the ball like Bart Hill and Kyle Ferguson.
The two reds on the strong side.
We got off the ball. Back then, we played smash mouth football. We didn't do any of this catching folks and steering them around somebody. We hit folks in the mouth and drove them off the ball. It was.
I'll be sure to remind Randolph.
It was a beautiful thing.
I remember it a little differently, but
how did those wars go, Fergie? When it was best on best, ones on one, did y'all indeed handle Luke and Big B like you're saying?
Hey man, it was a battle. It was a battle. Nobody really wanted Randolph, and we could block the lane.
I'll shut up. That's all I wanted to hear.
You'd have to fight him after practice or something. It wasn't on the field that you worried about. It's just what kind of crazy stuff he'd do to you later.
We touched on the when we were juniors, that team a little bit, and it was a great team. Those practices I remember vividly. We'd just go to the football field, turn the lights on, and go 1-on-1. And that'd be a practice for 2 hours. Just go at it. Quickly into our senior year, I think Coach Riggs is our defensive coordinator, and we're getting ready. I'm like, this is going to be fun. Coach Wright said, no more 1-on-1.
I don't remember that, Huey.
Well, I would expect you would.
I do remember this though, Steve. I remember. I think we were playing. Was it Tallahassee? You came in and laid a big lick on somebody, and you came up, and I think you were trying to do a little smoke and gun thing, like shooting somebody down, and we thought you had been dazed, and they took you out. You remember that?
Not really. It's all just a blur.
Well, Ferg, we appreciate you calling in. We're fixing to get close to wrapping.
I'm sorry I'm late.
Never late.
We graduated 300 seniors in class of 2016 at Northridge High School tonight. My daughter was one of them. Number 7.
Congratulations.
Senior class of 300. So
awesome.
But we've had a house full of folks tonight. But Tigers for life, baby. Thank y'all for giving me a call earlier, and can't wait to see you guys again. Coach Riggs. I know you've had a great career, and I appreciate you being a part of ours. Go Tigers.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Kyle Ferguson.
All right, y'all.
Thanks, Kyle.
See you, Kyle.
Kyle Ferguson, good enough to join us as well. Appreciate him calling in. Of course, that just stirred up a whole nother set of emotions and stories, and we're going to stay here just for a second, and we're going to wind things up. Once again, recapping the magical run, 12-3, and of course 2-3 after 5 games, win the last 10, and we live in a world now where things are a little different politically and what you can and can't do. But one of my memories is being down there with you guys on the field after the game, going into the locker room, and Mr. Jim Grimes having every cigar that the AMP had, handing them out, and the whole locker room's just mushroomed up in smoke. And I'm not sure you could do that anymore. Although it was a lot of fun to watch it that night, and you could tell there were several guys that wasn't their first cigar they'd smoked. Any final thoughts, Weave?
There was one I was thinking about. Y'all were talking about the UMS game, and I remember before the game, and Bart and Steve will remember this, I'm sure, maybe Kevin too, and Eric, but Dwayne said, I'm going swimming in that pool before the night's over with. And just as soon as we won, he went jumping off, and I remember Coach Raj having a fit.
Now, this is in November.
This is in November, that's right. He just went and did a cannonball with his uniform on, but I remember that. It's vivid. And
kind of going to go around the horn and just kind of get some final thoughts from all you guys, and then Ken and I will kind of wrap it up. And Steve, go ahead.
Well, I know one more remark about I couldn't leave here without mentioning 2 of the buddies that played with us the year before, Jeff Chamberlain and Robbie Cotton. Just a quick story on them. They just the other day I was talking to Robbie. I think there's always been a lot of competition between the two because they both played quarterback that their sophomore year, and about half the season up, and which one did this, which one did that. And I told Robbie, I said, Robbie, you and Jeff can both rest assured neither one of you were part of Coach Sasser's 4-year plan.
I'll tell you, and one little side note on that, it was a pretty fair split. I think Robbie got the starts against Greenville, Atmore, Jackson, Thomasville, and Chamberlain got Wilcox County and Evergreen.
That's right. And I'm just kind of kidding. They were both real good football players.
Bart, how about you?
I was just reflecting a while ago when you were talking about the coaches, and it dawned on me that I can remember each time, each first introduction or first time that each one of my coaches came across my radar. Coach Riggs, we were playing a baseball game our junior year over in Opp, and he was coaching baseball at the time. There was a little incident at the plate with one of the Sperlin boys and Robbie Cotton. Coach Riggs, he pulled the kid out of the game and set him on the bench. And to me, that just kind of stuck. I remember the first time I met Coach Sasser. We were playing softball. I was in the 8th grade, and I was having a particularly good game that day during PE when he came over to give his spiel about lifting weights and what the summer program was going to be like. I completely bought in. I mean, I remember the first time I met Coach. Remember seeing Coach Raj. He killed a big old water moccasin down at O'Bannon on the baseball field. Coach Jones, I saw him in the lunchroom, and I was told that he was going to be one of the new football coaches. Huge man.
And you'd probably played against Coach Baker in backyard football at the high school right before he got hired.
So there were some brutal games on Sunday afternoon.
I was glad he got hired. He quit playing.
Coach Baker was coordinating the defense, and he ran it like a real defense. Some of those pickup games, I remember him from those games. Yeah. And I guess what I'm trying to say is it just each one had a profound effect on my life, and I remember it, and I'm grateful for it. I really am.
Go ahead, James.
I was going to say, I know Bart and Steve will remember this, but you see, I could even go back and I can remember when Coach Riggs played. You know, you're talking about the Miller history. I remember Coach, if I remember correctly, 33. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right. I was going to say, and him and Coach Baker. And I was trying to think who was the quarterback, and I know who it is. It's tip of my tongue. But, you know, I'm just thinking about, you know, when we grew up, we looked at people like that, and then you came along, it was the Reggie Browns, you know, the Maurice Mallers, you know, all those guys. And so you just kind of go through, and then you kind of, you know, 30 years has passed since we played, since we won. And, you know, time's passed. But T.R. Miller football just has not.
You know, you mentioned those guys, and Coach Riggs and I have talked about this before on Tiger Talk, and mentioned earlier that Walter Lewis is going to kind of come down and going to kick off the Hometown Heroes project on June the 10th here in Bruton. And when we were kids, in the TV that you had or didn't have in terms of the coverage of the professional sports, I remember there being 3 quarterbacks: Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, and Walter Lewis. And I don't know who the best one was. I didn't know who the best one was at the time, but I mean, that was the only 3 quarterbacks that I knew. And it was just, that's how big they were to me. And that's how magical I don't want to cheese it up too bad and say it was a Camelot experience, but it almost was. You know, our mother was a school teacher up there, so we were, you know, extremely closely connected, whether it was with the floats getting built or she made us a part of the wood drags at homecoming or whatnot. But it was certainly a special time, and I think we were all very fortunate to grow up in the era that we did. And of course, I know others say the same, but it was a pretty cool deal.
Special place.
Want to bring without going to break, want to bring the Frederick and Kevin and Eric in real quick and get their closing thoughts on it also. And once again, just appreciate all of you coming to being a part of it. And of course, Ken will get this thing edited later, and hopefully some of it'll be a part of the Hometown Heroes. But Frederick, just real quick in closing, want to get some of your thoughts of that season, of that time, some of the things that kind of stick with you to this day.
Well, that season, I guess, I learned a lot as a player because of the seniors. I mean, running the scout team and really learning football, you had to be on your A game playing against those guys because they were the best of the best. And you know, I carried that in my junior and senior year, and you know,
and that's one of the, and I'm kind of glad you brought that up. That's one of the things that was definitely definitive when we were there. There was a hierarchy. I mean, there was a pecking order. The herd was clearly established. I've watched, my son's a sophomore, going to be a junior at T.R. Miller next year, and I remember, I have a vivid memory of him being in 7th grade and kind of holding court with some of the juniors and seniors in high school. I mean, he was dominating the conversation, and I'm sitting there thinking, that would have been like me and Lamar Ward and Zach Lundy out there. And if I'd have seen them, I'd have gone the other way. I would have never put myself in the company of those 2 guys. So, I mean, some of that has changed, and I'm not saying that's better or worse, but it's just kind of weird how things change like that.
Well, David, back in our time, you hated to hear in practice the word Oklahoma. First on first, Oklahoma, it was brutal.
Well, how bad was this? When Coach Sasser thought he was doing us all a favor, maybe on halfway through Wednesday practice, and he said, you go put on shorts. You know, you're going to still say full pass, and it was still wide open. Nothing changed. The game plan didn't change. All right, team offense. Well, Coach went, team offense. What kind of sense is this made? No dummies or nothing. It got to the point about week 3, you didn't go put your shorts on. You said, forget that.
I don't think I
give me another J-pad.
Knew anything about an easy day.
Yeah.
A light day.
Ladner, how about you? Closing thoughts.
I just remember, and it was kind of ironic that on the spring game, Steve Bart's spring game, it went down to the wire then. Steve was my receiver on white or red. I don't remember what team we were.
White.
Steve was my receiver during that game, and we won. We won the game last couple minutes. I threw a pass to Steve, and he ended up winning the game kind of in the spring game. And then to end their senior season also, it kind of went to James. So I always thought that was kind of neat how it played out. Like that. So, I mean, hey, I feel so lucky to just know these guys, and that class of 85 is a fantastic group, and the guys I played with, I wouldn't change anything for the world. It's memories that I'll take to my grave with me.
How about you,
Eric? One thing I want to say to everybody is Coach Sasser instilled us a discipline to be disciplined and be tough. If you wasn't either one, you wasn't playing for him, and Coach Riggs either. Because as you talked about with Joseph, the only reason he got the yards he got, that the starting tailback scored 3 touchdowns in the first game, but he didn't block and he didn't fake and he didn't grade out real well and he didn't like it, so he got asked to leave. So
there you go.
You talking about holding them accountable and keeping that bar high, that speaks volumes right there.
That's correct.
Tell you what, before we go to Coach Riggs, had a pretty nice text come in from Thad Moore. He was going to be here with us. He was a junior on that team, played center, had some Little League baseball obligations a little earlier. Thad's going to be coaching one of our all-star teams here in Brewton. I know he's going to do a great job with them, but kind of echoed your statement, said he enjoyed playing with all these guys that are here tonight. They were all Warriors, and he wouldn't have traded any era for the one he got to play in. So that's pretty nice of Thad to send that in. And,
awesome.
And I sent him back. Thad was pretty tough in his own right.
154-pound center. He was tough.
He'd fight you all night long.
All night. He had great feet.
Coach Riggs, want to bring you in one more time and kind of get your closing thoughts on it. Just that '84 season, the magic of T.R. Miller in general, the kind of community we have here, and the fact that we're going to have a chance to showcase that for outside visitors, I think is a pretty cool thing.
It is a cool thing, and David, I tell you, all the years I coached, everything that you do is done with people. You can talk about facilities and stuff, but it's about people. And the '84 team had great people, a great character, great work ethic, played together, and it was about as close to coming together as a team as we could down there, especially during that playoff run. And it was an honor for me to be a part of that, and I'll remember it always. It was an honor to coach with those guys. We had a tremendous coaching staff. It all came together that year, but it's all done with people, and we have had great people in Brewton, and I hope that will continue.
All right.
Well said. Let's take a short break, and we come back. Ken, you and I will kind of wrap things up, and probably won't say too much because enough's been said here tonight, and we certainly don't want to dampen that. But stay with us, and we'll close things up here at the bottom line. Back in Studio B, closing things up. A great 2 hours with a lot of the members of the 1984 state championship team. And once again, kind of trying to promote the Hometown Heroes exhibit that's going to be in Brewton June the 10th. We want input from everybody, but these guys got things off to a good start.
Oh, what a great, I mean, just stories to sit and listen to.
Endless.
DJ. I mean, that's what this exhibit, in my opinion, is all about.
And these certainly aren't the only stories.
No,
I mean, there's going to be different people that'll have a different set of stories that'll be equally entertaining. The key is to make sure we get them captured, get them told. There's going to be opportunities. We talked about the story box being at the Oaks Cafe next Thursday. Get your stories together, get them in the box. Sandy English is hosting an event here in the very near future. I think that's posted on Facebook somewhere. Brewton Reborn, Connie Baggett. You can get in contact with them. They'll be happy to capture your memories. Doesn't have to be football related.
No,
we just chose to do that here tonight.
Yeah, as we said kind of in the onset of the show, not a lot out there about the 84 championship team. And I think we've helped to put some more out there tonight. And I think that we probably could have went for another couple hours just listening to these guys tell stories. And, you could just tell that they grew up playing with each other and enjoyed playing with each other, and really you could tell that the camaraderie is still there.
I'll tell you what was really neat, and of course I could have done a much better job having this thing organized in terms of formatting it, but it was kind of neat that as we went around to different guys, they were the message was the same. They mentioned Coach Hart, who wasn't necessarily on the staff, but how important he was at the junior high level several years before, challenging them as people, challenging them, telling them what it was to be a Terrell Miller Tiger. You heard Coach Wright, you heard Dale Garner, you certainly heard Coach Sasser. Coach Sasser was a jewel, an absolute jewel. Coach Baker, they talked about the importance of playing with your childhood friends, the memories you make. And I think maybe the greatest thing that was said, and I couldn't say it any louder or any prouder, it's the journey. It's you hope you win that blue map at the end, but the time and the sweat you put in and the blood you shed, it's the journey is what it's all about. And I think that's one of the great things about recreation or sports in general in extracurricular activities. I can tell you right now, when Johnny Folsom was here, I can tell you right now that T.R. Miller band practiced just as hard and just as long, if not longer. They have what they call band camp. I don't know if they still do it. It was 3 days.
Yes.
3 days. And I can assure you the sweat they put in was equal to anything the football team ever did.
Yeah, well,
and that needs to be part of it. That's what we're looking for.
And that's what I understand. This exhibit is all about that. It doesn't matter if you were involved in any. And this is not just Miller either. It's Neil,
absolutely.
Southern Normal,
yes.
Any activity that you were involved in growing up here in Bruton, they want to showcase it. I think it's tremendous that we were picked to actually do this here in Bruton.
It's amazing. I don't know who's responsible for it, but that is a feather in our cap, and it's our responsibility to be active participants and make sure it comes off the way it does, because we have a very rich history here.
We do. And, just the honor of having to know that that's going to be in the Smithsonian forever. Forever. Just like, we talk about having these shows archived and being able to go back. Well, what I hope to do is take some of these clips from tonight and put them together and have it where they can put it in the exhibit downtown and people can come in and enjoy some of those things. I mean, how many times are you ever going to have the crew together in one room to talk like we did tonight, DJ? I mean, and of course, and you're around this a lot, but how many times do you have the opportunity to have the call in? You had Joseph Williams call in.
Unbelievable.
I mean, when I was in middle school, elementary school, that's all we heard about was Joseph Williams.
He was everything you heard. I promise you that. And I think you saw this here tonight. I don't think it's a coincidence. You saw how good of people they are.
They were. And, just to recognize somebody that I got a text from, Jackson Thomas he was MVP his senior year for tennis.
It matters.
It does.
It matters. I need to get that in the story box at Oaks.
In the show notes.
Show notes, yeah.
Yeah, listen, it doesn't matter what. It's sports, recreation, any type of extracurricular activity, cheerleader. That's what they're having with Sandy here coming up. It's kind of a journey. I say journey. That's probably a bad word. Not the right word for it, but a gathering of the cheerleaders that have been. And I don't think it's just Miller. I mean, I think we're talking about just in Bruton in general. And we say Bruton. A lot of times we don't say Bruton, East Bruton, that kind of thing. But we're talking about this community as a whole. So, no matter what side of the creek you're on, they want you involved. The exhibit wants you involved. You can contact us. We can put you in contact with who you need to be to talk with. Myself or DJ, one of us can. And just a tremendous. I'm glad to be a part of this tonight, to be able to maybe take some of this and put it on used to say a CD, but now I think it's a
floppy disk,
a jump drive. Yeah, the Coach Riggs talking about those big record floppy disk. But now I think you just put on a jump drive or something like that. They're going to be able to put it and have it in the exhibit downtown. Some of us would call it the old Magnolia Grill building, the Everages building, but it's the building on the corner that's got the mural on the side of it, where 31 and 41 intersect downtown. They're going to have that open. What is it, June the 6th? Is that right?
June the 10th.
June 10th. Okay, June 10th. But how big is Walter Lewis is going to come down and kind of help kick that thing off?
I'll tell you, and that's for my money anyway, a very appropriate person to kick it off. Like I said, when I was a kid, he was the guy. I mean, he was the guy. Finished 7th in the Heisman Trophy voting.
Listen.
Was a pallbearer for Bear Bryant's funeral.
I was going to say
royalty.
He is definitely a legend from Bruton, and we're glad to have him from Bruton. And listen, anybody, that's what this show is about: bringing the community together. I think we've done that tonight. I think we had some great stories told. I think there's probably a lot more stories to be told.
Absolutely.
I think we'll probably hear more stories as we move and go forward. on down that line. But one thing about it, from week to week, we didn't mention this at the beginning, but this was episode 10, number 10 of the Bottom Line tonight, and I think we had a little snafu a little earlier with the stream there at the Facebook, but we got it back going just that quick. But episode 10, and it's been the longest episode, so I think we're working on about 2 hours, right? Well, a little over 2 hours.
Well, I can tell you this: in 10 weeks, we've stirred some interest. We've got some different opinions going. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted people to take ownership in this town, this community. I think we're doing that. We got the show authorized.
We did.
We've expanded its availability, and that's all credits to you, Ken. And I'm going to use the words of Coach Riggs. Hometown Heroes Project is something you need to get involved with. Coach Riggs talked about the people. We have a very rich tradition of people here. I mean, great people. We need to get the stories told, get on board with this project, find out how you can get your story in the mix. And this is going to be an outstanding thing for all of us. I'm really looking forward to it.
It will, and we look forward to having that exhibit kicked off. Again, the Bottom Line will be mobile in the next few weeks. Looking to have a big time, big show the first time we take this thing on the road. Probably going to be a few technical difficulties along the way. I'm just about sure of that. But what are you going to do about it? It's just one of those things. We'll deal with it as it comes. But looking forward to that. Again, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, thebottomlineshow.net, YouTube, and right here on Facebook as well. So check us out. You can watch the shows anytime. You can download the shows. I've got a lot of people telling me this. Listen, I may not get to catch it live, but I'll download it, and if I'm traveling or whatever, and listen to it and watch that kind of thing. So, hey, we appreciate it. We appreciate all the input from the community that we've got from the show, and just like tonight. I mean, Coach Riggs is a legend.
No question about that. And that's the bottom line.
That is the bottom line.
The bottom line.
And he sat here for 2 hours tonight.
And would have sat 2 more. If you're talking about Bruton, if you're talking about our school, he just sat here until the cows come home.
That's a fact. And we are real lucky to have Coach Riggs in here tonight to be able to reminisce back with the guys from that team. And let's be honest, DJ, Coach Riggs has seen some outstanding football teams over the years at T.R. Miller. I mean, outstanding. So, and it's always, I've always liked listening to Coach Riggs because he's always got some stories or something different to say about different teams, every year or the championship teams or maybe the teams that played for, that kind of thing. I mean, he's always got something to say, but, he just having him here was a special treat for sure.
How about Eric Cole for district judge?
Eric Cole.
Is there a better person?
No,
I mean, as good a person as you're going to meet.
Great guy.
He slept with Hammock and Grimes on the eve of the championship. That's got to be worth something.
I'm going to tell you something. That right there, if there wasn't an epiphany tonight, that was it. To tell that, and he owned up to it.
Well, I think Steve said it best. It speaks volumes of what the coaches thought of Eric and Tommy to put them with those two guys.
It really did. And listen, what about the story that Coach Riggs told about, that they were going to be with Dwayne and do this and that and other. And when Coach Sasser said, look, I don't care what happens. It's 7:30 tomorrow night. He's playing football. Coach Sasser, great. I'm going to bed. I'm out. Hey, listen, we've had a great time. DJ, you want to close it out?
Once again, Hometown Heroes coming to Bruton, Alabama, June the 10th. Get our stories told, a rich tradition in recreation, athletics, extracurricular activities. Get with the Bruton Reborn. Get down to the Oaks Cafe next Thursday. Whatever you got to do, get in touch with us. Let's get the stories captured to make this project what it needs to be. Bruton's great, and that's the bottom line.
The Bottom Line was brought to you by Boss Man Productions. The views expressed by Colin Guest or in-studio guests are not necessarily those of The Bottom Line, the host, Boss Man Productions, other advertisers, or any affiliate of The Bottom Line. The Bottom Line is for entertainment purposes only.